Good morning and welcome. My name is Christopher Messamore, and I have the distinct pleasure of being the Program Administrator for the Mississippi Pollution Prevention Program. The Pollution Prevention Program is focused on source reduction of pollution and conservation of natural resources. Our enHance program is our initiative which recognizes environmental leaders throughout the state. This year's conference theme is celebrating the successes of sustainable manufacturing. And as we hear others share their success stories, I want us to think about the successes that we've experienced in our own facilities, the positive impacts that we've had in the communities across Mississippi, and also what our next goal is and how we'll achieve it together. Before we begin today, I think there's some people that we have to really thank and who were instrumental to the success of this day. First, everyone in attendance. Without your hard work and enthusiasm, there would be no one to recognize. Next, I'd like to thank all of our speakers. A tremendous amount of effort goes into them being here today and sharing their successes with us. And finally, I would like to thank Barbara Hopkins, Jim Stringer, and the rest of MMA. Without them, we couldn't do it. Now, I would like to introduce our MC for the morning, Dr. Joe Jordan. Dr. Jordan is the Assistant Director of the MMA MEP, the Manufacturing Extension Program for Mississippi. Dr. Jordan has earned engineering degrees from Mississippi State as well as a PhD from Georgia State University. Before joining the MEP in 2012, Dr. Jordan has over 25 years of experience in higher education in roles such as teaching, outreach, research, and administration. Before I turn it over to Joe, I'd like to reiterate my thanks to all of you on behalf of the MDEQ. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Good morning, everyone. As the slide says, my name is Joe Jordan. As Chris, thank you for the introduction. I'm very glad to be here with you this morning. I'm going to be the Master of Ceremonies for the first part of the morning. If I'm not mistaken, this is the 9th year of enHance, and that's 9 years of recognizing environmental stewardship. 9 years of recognizing those of you who go above and beyond compliance to improve Mississippi's economy. Today represents sort of the culmination of a year-long process, an annual cycle, if you will, for enHance. Typically, applications for membership are accepted July through September. These are reviewed for eligibility, and those that meet initial approval then agree to a site visit. Those that are eventually accepted then, in January, we announced 5 new members and 10 returning members. I think the total number of members now is about 43. So today, we're going to have an awards luncheon. At lunch, we're going to feed you well to recognize these companies that have joined, the new members as well as those returning members, and to give them their awards. But this is also a workshop, and that means we have to learn something today, right? We have to do something else first. And so we've got a slate of speakers for you this morning. They're going to share some success stories in sustainability, especially in manufacturing. And we're also going to have some other activities going on. So in terms of how we got here today, I would mention that we started in January with a steering committee meeting. Would those of you who are in the steering committee, the enHance steering committee, raise your hands and be recognized? I know we've got a couple. Good. Thank you for being here. And thank you for your service as well. We do want to recognize a couple of folks. First of all, I want to recognize Chris for his hard work. He's very kind with his and generous with his praise for others, but he also obviously has worked very hard on this as well. And Carrie, where's Carrie? Carrie must be outside in the hall right now. Carrie, I always have trouble with his name, Abu Sablah, who is actually the P2 coordinator, I think. And then Chris has already recognized Jim Stringer and Barbara Hopkins. I'd also like to recognize Dr. Jay Tice. Is he here yet? He'll be here shortly. He's going to speak to us. And Carolyn Miller from our office, who have also played a part in helping us get ready for today. So as Chris said, our theme is celebrating successes of sustainable manufacturing. I do want to stress it's important to understand that enHance is not just about manufacturing, but clearly it plays a key role in the enHance program. A lot of opportunities for sustainability and manufacturing, and we think that's a great thing. we think sustainable manufacturing is good business. It's not just a matter of tree hugging and things like that. It's good business, reducing waste, minimizing resources, reducing costs. And we think that being sustainable can be a competitive advantage. And also I think sustainability in business is very important in that it teaches our employees sustainability practice as well. Studies have shown that individuals who work for companies where there is a strong culture of sustainability carry a lot of those same attitudes and practices to their own personal lives. And so that's good for us all. So as I say, we've got an excellent range of topics and a slate of speakers for you today. Just a brief look at the agenda. We're going to start with Brett Rasmussen from Nissan with a discussion. Then we're going to have a case study, essentially, after Dr. Tice from my office gives you a brief overview of some changes with our organization. We're going to have a case study about an E3 assessment that we did for Cooper Tire several years ago with some good outcomes. We're going to have Jason Darnell from Packard Engine talk about wood waste reduction through returnable containers, a very important topic in manufacturing. Then about 10 o'clock we're going to take a break, give you a chance to network and get a cup of coffee. Then we've got an excellent panel on recycling and waste reduction with several individuals, Don Lamar, Scott Grounsell, and Mark Williams. Then a discussion about mentoring and customer-supplier relationships with Keith McMullen from Holmac and Lance Stogner. This is a late-minute change, by the way. The agenda in your packet has a different second person there, but Lance Stogner from Keith Huber Corp. will be on that discussion. Then we've got a discussion from Tim Johnson, Toyota Motor Company, about environmental management systems and ISO 14001. And then we'll have our awards luncheon, which will include a presentation from our keynote, J.D. Hardy of MSU, awards presentation for the new and returning members, and then comments from Gary Rickard, the Executive Director of MDEQ. Just a couple of things, housekeeping-wise, before we get started. Please make sure your cell phones are off or silent. The restrooms are right outside the door to the left. There's more on further down, and I think there's even some more on the other way, but the closest ones are just to the left. We will take a break about 10 o'clock, and lunch is at noon. Otherwise, we'll be in session. All awardees, new and returning awardees, please stay at the end if you can so we can get a class photo of the group. There is an evaluation form in your packet. There should be. Please be sure that you fill this out and return it before you leave today. If you have to leave early, please leave it on the table outside. Also in the packet, there is a copy of the agenda. Speaker bios for all the speakers except for the one late change that we had, and I think also a list of attendees. And I did want to mention just very briefly today, we're giving as speaker gifts a product that's made here in Mississippi. This is from an entrepreneur we've been working with in our MEP program recently. It's called the Max Bit, and this is made in Mississippi, made in West Point, Mississippi for a company based in Clinton. That is used, and you attach it to a drill, and it's used to make the perfect hole to plant a 4-inch plant from a 4-inch pot. And so we're giving these today as speaker gifts. If you wonder what the box is, what's in the boxes, I wanted to just mention that. If you're interested in that, it's an excellent product, the perfect hole every time. It's themaxbit.com is the website, THEMAXBIT. Okay, so our first speaker. Are there any questions or any comments from anyone before we get started? Okay, so our first speaker, Brett Rasmussen from Nissan, was raised in Rexburg, Idaho. He is a graduate of Ricks College as well as Utah State University, where he earned a BS degree in mechanical engineering. Brett earned his professional engineering license in 1992. He continues to learn, which leads him to be granted the title of Certified Energy Manager in 2007 and Master Level Certified Energy Auditor in 2012. In 2010, Brett received the ABE Legend in Energy Award, and he's also been conferred the prestigious award of 2012 Energy Engineer of the Year for the Association of Energy Engineers. Brett has over 15 years of experience in aerospace engineering and over 14 years as a utilities and energy engineer for the automotive industry. He's been instrumental in Nissan's Canton plant receiving the prestigious Energy Star, Superior Energy Performance, and ISO 50001 SEP, is that right? As you probably already know, the Canton plant was the first industrial facility in the state that was certified ENERGY Star, and it's been 11 years in a row. Brett also is certified in 24 schools in Mississippi for ENERGY Star labeling. He's been a MMA Energy Committee Chairman for 6 years, and he was given an enHance Leadership Award in 2013 from Mississippi Department of Environmental Quality. Brett Rasmussen.
All right. So just stay on this mic.
It works. Anyway.
Turn this one on too.
Sure.
Okay. All right. So you can still hear me? Okay. Great. As mentioned, my name's Brett Rasmussen, and actually in June I will have been in Canton, Mississippi's plant for 15 years. I moved down to Mississippi in 2002 working for the aerospace company up in Iuka, Mississippi. So I have a daughter that's in college now, and she recognizes Mississippi as home. She's 18 now, 15 years in Mississippi. So we are transplants here. I guess we've used that 6-inch tool to plant roots here. So just a little information. All right. Wrong button. So, which one?
Should be the one on the right.
Oh, right. Okay. Now, just a little information about Nissan. We have facilities all over the country. Our corporate office is in Franklin, Tennessee, just outside of Nashville. We have 3 manufacturing facilities. We have technical centers. We have design centers and research centers throughout in different parts of the country. Just some information, we have 22,000 employees, 16,000 manufacturing positions. Nissan started manufacturing in the United States in 1983. Canton facility has 6,400 employees. The Smyrna facility has 8,400 employees. And Deckard, our engine plant, has 1,900 employees. And these are some very interesting numbers. So in calendar year 16, Nissan spent $14 billion in 30 states for product to build the vehicles. So it's a very much invested in the United States, and $11 billion that we've invested in our manufacturing facilities. Now, is there an arrow on this?
Maybe that button right there?
Nope.
Guess not. Well, you can think maybe it's back here.
It should be the center button, Joe. Big center.
Oh, yeah, the big one in the middle, sorry.
All right. Thank you. All right. This is very interesting. This is Carlos Munoz. He's our representative over the Americas, from South America to Canada. He's the Nissan representative. And he was called in, and you recognize this gentleman right there. Opportunity for the automobile manufacturing to go and talk to the president. Very interesting thing. Basically a push to keep jobs in America. A push to keep our opportunities here too. So very interesting. It shows you how the current administration is very involved in jobs. These are some of the events that you don't even hear about in the news, but they go on. Now, also with Nissan, one of the great things is that upper management is very involved in manufacturing plants. This is Carlos Ghosn. He is our CEO. He's just retired, and we have a new one. But in January, he came to Canton facility. We had recently received our our Energy Star certification for our facility, and we were able to get a photo with him. And then you see Carlos Munoz right there also. So upper management is very involved in energy reductions. They like these pictures. So in the manufacturing in the United States, between the two facilities, the Smyrna plant and the Canton plant, we produce over 1 million vehicles a year. In the Canton plant, we build 5 different vehicles. We build the Titan. It has been remodeled, redesigned, and brand new. The Frontier, the Altima, the Murano, and the LCV, and it has a commercial vehicle van and a bus with 15-passenger van, basically. Up in Smyrna, they build the Rogue, the Altima, the Leaf, the Maxima, and the Pathfinder, and the Infiniti QX60. Now, one of the things that corporate has committed to is energy, to reduce the energy. Now, it's very interesting when you consider the cost of a vehicle. If you look at the cost to build vehicles at Canton for the energy with the natural gas, the water, and the sewer, it works out to $50 a vehicle. Doesn't sound like much, but when you build 400,000 vehicles, that's $20 million a year in energy costs. So anything that you can do to reduce your energy costs helps the bottom line. And so one of the big things that with our program with Energy Star and DOE's superior energy performance, we are always looking for ways that we can come up with reducing our energy usage. Now, through the years, we have shown approximately $12 million that we have reduced our energy use from what it used to be. So we've had some very good successes. Now, one of the programs that Nissan has is the Nissan Green program, and we have just ended our old Nissan 2016 program, and we're getting ready to start our 2020 or 2022 program, which what we're looking for is a continuous to continue to improve. Right now, we just finished. We have had a benchmark from 2005 to now where we wanted a 20% reduction in our CO2 emissions. And our next goal is to continue on that with another 7%. So from 2005 to 2022, a 27% reduction in our CO2 numbers. So we have several programs or commitments that we have. We have through the Department of Energy, we have the Better Plants and the Better Plants Challenge, and through the EPA we have Energy Star. Now it's official now. We will be recognized next week for our 6th Energy Star Partner of the Year Sustained Excellence Award. It's the highest award that the EPA gives out, and this will be our 6th in a row that we've been able to receive. The other thing we're doing is we're working with the Department of Energy on ISO 50001, and part of 50001 also has a piece called Superior Energy Performance. And what ISO does different than, say, Energy Star is Energy Star, you submit your own data to them and verify that it's correct and have it stamped by a PE, where with ISO programs, you bring in an outside auditor to look at your facility to verify that you're meeting what you say you're meeting. And the same's true with ISO 50001. You now bring in an outside auditor to verify your energy program is meeting the goals that you said that you were going to meet. And so it puts, and so if you get ISO 50001 SEP, Superior Energy Performance, it has been audited by outside, so nobody can question that you're getting the savings that you're stating that you're getting. Now, how Nissan did this program is we first started with one facility. Our Smyrna plant was the first facility to get ISO 50001 certified, and it was the first motor vehicle, passenger vehicle plant to get certified in ISO 50001. And so they've actually got certified twice now. First back in 2012, and then they were recertified this last year. So the first 3 years look at being audited, they had a 7% savings. And so from that, they continued on. So it went back to 2009 to 2012, they had a 7% reduction in energy use. And then from 2012 to 2015, they had an 18%. So overall, their facility, since they've implemented ISO 50001, has had a 24% reduction in energy use. And their terms that they use for this is platinum level certification. So it's over 5 is silver, over 10 is gold, over 15 is platinum. So Smyrna was able this year to become certified and platinum certified. Now, so, all right, so part of what we have is we have different midterm plans, or one of the plans that we had was our Nissan Power 88 business plan. And basically, it's a way to build on your successes. And so these are some of our corporate goals: TDC reduction, SEP certifications, help bring all of the plants together. And so one of the things that we did to try to communicate better what goes on at the different plants is by becoming ISO 50001 certified for corporate. So we put our 3 manufacturing facilities together, and we're able to try to standardize how all of our ISO programs are working together, so that they all work together, and so that they're not just you have rules just for Smyrna, but we tried to make the rules so that they fit all the plants together, so that when we're audited, everybody can go through and see how we're doing. So in our enterprise-wide manufacturing, our ISO 50000, it includes the Smyrna plant, the Deckard engine plant. We also have a battery plant, and then Canton are the plants that are included in our corporate-wide ISO certification. Now, one of the things that we tried to do to make the program easier was we were already ISO 14001 certified. And so the 2 programs, at least the management system part of it, are really similar. And so what we tried to do was to fit those 2 together so that we only have one management procedure that covers both 14,001 and 50,001, so you don't have to have another separate program, but you're combining those 2 so that you can still use the same resources that you had before to have just one program. And so it gave us that ability. And so in 2016, in November, we adopted this, and that's when we had the auditors come in to do Smyrna, Canton, and Deckard to see if we met the requirements. So part of the ISO is you say what you do what you say, and you prove it. So what we found out in our auditing experience was that the auditors, they only found 10% of things that they thought had issues. But what we did is we were finding, relating to the company, our own requirements were way more strict than what ISO were. But that's okay. It keeps us on the path. But so we were more restrictive than the ISO programs were. So it just keeps us on path and helps us to have continuous improvement. Whoops. Which one is backwards?
Should be the one on the left.
Left. Yes, okay. All right, so Smyrna serves as our central office and is responsible for the procedure updates and overall planning. Each site has an environmental and an energy engineer team responsible for developing and executing action plans in order to achieve their targets. And so we try to get together once a year with all the sites, and that's what this picture up here is one of our retreats where we got together with the environmental and the energy people to come up with new goals and how we can, what we can do to try to improve our facilities. Now, one of the things that we are doing this year to try to help reduce our energy is a thing called treasure hunts. Somebody up here in the front introduced them to us a while ago. And what a treasure hunt is, you actually go out and first off, you go out when your plant is shut down to see if there's things being left on that you could make sure get shut off. There were also, you go out at the startup of production, and then you go out when you're running full production. And you have a team of people that are going around looking for opportunities for savings, things left on. I could do this a little bit different and it would help. That pump doesn't have a variable speed drive and it's cranked and the valve's cranked half shut. So there are a lot of opportunities that are found in treasure hunts, and then you take these ideas and you implement them to try to help your program improve. And that's part of what developing a task list adds. So we continuously try to have these task lists or opportunity lists that we are working towards to try to improve our energy performance. Now, one of the things that Nissan does is we have a group in corporate where if you have a project that has under a 3-year payback and has CO2 reductions, they will look at that and see if they can fund it. And so it used to be a year when we first started the program, and now we're up to 3 years. And part of the reason why it's up to 3 years is we've shared with them what other automobile manufacturers, their payback on their projects, and they've integrated that into our program. Now, this is our Canton facility. This is our rating when we got certified in December of 2016. We showed a 20.9% improvement in 3 years. So we also were platinum level. And one of the interesting things is that we are the first company to be ISO 50001 certified in Mississippi. So it's just, sorry, have to brag a little bit. So, and basically this shows what we did, our improvement over the years, where and part of this was we were able to increase our line speed, our how many jobs per hour we were producing. We went from 79 to 85 jobs an hour. Doesn't sound like a lot, but in the overall scheme, using the same amount of hours, I produce more vehicles. So it immediately hits your energy per unit. It makes it go better. And so that was and then we also had chiller optimization was one of the other large projects that we had. We have 25,000 tons of cooling capacity at our facility here in Canton, one of the largest in the state, and it was one of our biggest users. And for ISO 50001, one of the things that you have to do is you have to break down your facility by who uses the energy and where it goes. And so with that, our chilled water generation was our highest one source use of power at our facility. And so it made sense to try to do a project that would reduce your highest user some way. And so we were able to, one of the opportunities that we've had at Nissan is being able to work with the EPA and the Automobile Manufacturers Association. We have a once a year meeting where we actually get together with other automobile manufacturers. We don't talk dollars, we talk million BTUs. And so we sit down with the other manufacturers and share with them what projects we've done this year to help our bottom line, and they also share with us what projects they've done. And Chrysler had a company come in and optimize some of their chiller plants. And so we approached this company, TechWorks is the name of the company that they had used, and they came out and gave us bids, and we were able to, a couple of years later, be able to have them come in and actually do this chiller optimization project, which basically helped us reduce our energy use by over 8 million kilowatt hours a year. So it's amazing what information is out there and how companies are willing to share when you talk million BTUs, because all of that drives back to if you reduce 8 million kilowatt hours, that's over, I think it was 3,500 metric tons of CO2. So it all goes back to the environment. And then our Deckard facility, they were able to certify also, and they had an 8% improvement. Now, one of the things that I wanted to highlight on this is a quote by Mike Clemmer. He's our director, and he's kind of the person that's over our energy team. And he said this: ISO 50001 and SAP are worth the effort as it brings structure and discipline to the program. Nissan values third-party verification or validation and the external recognition for being an environmentally friendly manufacturer. So that is his opinion of 50001. And so he being the director and sees the work that goes into it, sees it as having value for our company. So some key things that we got out of this was using the ISO 14001 program that we already had at our facilities and modifying it so that we could add the 50001 to it was a great step. We also have, we use one plant as the central hub, and all the information gets fed through them so that everybody doesn't have just a requirement that just fits at one site. We try to make them broad enough so that the requirements fit multiple sites. And then also some of the benefits we got were some of the tools out of this process. The DOE ENPI tool, our corporate really liked it. And so it's something that they're using now. So, 1 minute? Okay, sorry. All right. So, so there are lots of resources out there to help you in your programs. One of them is the IAC program through a lot of colleges. I know Louisiana has, or LSU has the program. Alabama has one. There's a technical center in Tennessee by our Nissan plant where they give free audits to help you. Another thing is Energy Star on their website and DOE's website has information about treasure hunts and how to implement a treasure hunt. And all this is free, and they have videos to go along with it. So it's opportunities to go in and try to get information on how to help your company improve. And so any questions?
Any questions for Brett?
Yes, sir.
Brett Bailey, 25 you just ran through some list of resources there.
Yes, sir.
One question I have, Joe, is your Public Service Commission is currently taking comments on the next phase of energy efficiency program. You know, they offer for residential, commercial, as well as industrial. Don't know if y'all take advantage of it or not, but in this next phase, they're taking comments, you know, asking a lot of things that are specific to the utilities. But one of the issues they're asking is comments on the industrial opt-out method. And, you know, I'd love to hear a comment from folks here. I know there's a lot of respected industries here in the room. But what's y'all's view on should large industries continue to be part of, you know, the next phase of larger scale comprehensive energy efficiency programs, and that's something would you not take advantage of?
Yes, we would love to take advantage of that. As far as in Mississippi, our large manufacturing facility, we're not able to, but some of our other facilities, we're looking at the opportunity where what he's talking about is there are a lot of programs where the utilities, if you do a project and reduce your energy use and you have ways to verify that that was reduced, they give you so much money per kilowatt hour that you reduce. Here in Mississippi, Entergy has a program for smaller businesses. For Nissan, where we're one of their top 5 supplier users, they haven't had one just for our facility. But up in Tennessee through TVA, if any of you have TVA, they have a program that they are very aggressively helping companies reduce their energy, where they give them checks. We've done projects. One of the projects that we did at Smyrna was we upgraded one of our paint plants. We went from a 3-wet process to a 2-wet process. And it saves 30% in the energy use to make a car because of that. And they got a check for over $500,000. They're great programs if you can use them.
Well, would y'all step up and try to encourage that type of change in the programs to allow bigger users in the state, you know, for the regulated utilities to develop something like that?
Well, it's us ourselves, we cannot. We have other arrangements with the power company, but I see no problem with. I wouldn't mind talking to other industries if that would help.
Thank you, Brett. We sure appreciate Nissan and the contribution they've made to the state, and especially to Brett's leadership in terms of manufacturing sustainability. Dr. Tice, if you come this way, and Albert. So our next block here, we're going to do a quick update on the MEP program. Dr. Tice is going to give us that. And then we're going to do a little case study about an E3 assessment that we did at Cooper Tire. Dr. John J. Tice IV serves as Executive Director of MMA MEP, and that, by the way, is a new label, and he's going to explain that momentarily, which is the Manufacturing Extension Partnership of Mississippi. Jay's diverse and extensive professional experience includes 10 years as the founding and directing an academic, not-for-profit manufacturing technology center in Virginia, 2 years with a nonprofit association with the Manufacturers Alliance in Washington, D.C., and 20 years of industrial experience with Monsanto and Georgia Pacific. As the Executive Director of MMA MEP, Dr. Tice works to assist Mississippi's manufacturers. MMA MEP is one of 51 MEP centers representing the 50 states and Puerto Rico. MEP is a catalyst for strengthening manufacturing in America and accelerating ongoing transformation into a more efficient and powerful engine. As part of the MEP network, MMA MEP has 4 university and community college-based centers strategically located around the state. Dr. Tice is passionate about manufacturing and it's important to the state and the union. Dr. Tice is a distinguished military graduate from Virginia Military Institute and holds a BS degree in chemistry from there. He also received a Master of Science degree in analytical chemistry as an EPA fellow and a PhD in analytical chemistry with a minor in nuclear engineering from Georgia Tech, Georgia Institute of Technology. Get that right. Jay served 9 years in the U.S. Army Reserve as an infantry officer, attaining the rank of captain. And while I'm at it, let me go ahead and introduce Albert McShann as well, who will speak at the end of this block while we're doing the introductions. Albert, I'm sure most of you know Albert, is the energy coordinator for Cooper Tire and Rubber Company, both for the Tupelo, very large facility in Tupelo, as well as the smaller facility in Clarksdale. He's been with the company for 27 years and serves in a variety of roles in the company to help the company progress in saving and maintenance and engineering in areas of the plant. He has served as the energy coordinator at Cooper for over 8 years, during which time the company has saved over $5 million in energy costs. He served on several different boards in the state, such as MECA, the Mississippi Energy Coordinators Association, and our own advisory council, the MEP Advisory Council. He has been a member of the enHance group for 5 years, and of course, Cooper has received several awards during that time. Cooper Tire has also received the Energy Saving Award from the state and recognition from the U.S. Department of Energy. He's currently training to become a Six Sigma Green Belt to help better serve the company. So first of all, Dr. Tice is going to give us an update on the MEP program, and then we'll do the case study. Dr. Tice. Here's the clicker. It's out of your way.
Thank you, Dr. Joe. I just want to take a few minutes. I want to recognize Dr. Joe's on our staff and has done a great job of helping to arrange this enhanced meeting, and we really enjoy working with MDEQ as having the contract there. But a little bit of exciting news about us. For many years you knew that we were a line of business of Innovate Mississippi, but we worked with Jay Moon and took a long time, and we competed as part of a round 4 recompetition of the MEP centers and won the award. Oops. So MEP, Innovate MEP is now part of called MMA MEP. We're a line of business of MMA. This became effective April 1st, 2017, but we actually moved the offices down in January of this year. We love being there. It's wonderful to be in a great, one of the top manufacturing associations in the country, and all we do is talk about manufacturing. That just couldn't be better. We, as you know, MMA is the voice of manufacturing in Mississippi, and MMA headquarters are located there. The strength of what we did and what the national folks liked at NISP when we competed through MMA is we brought our whole organization with you, which I'll talk about in just a second. And as Joe mentioned, we are one of 51 MEP centers in the country, which is all 50 states plus Puerto Rico. So we are the Mississippi MEP. How are you? This is just quickly shows an older map of the NIST MEP network. As I mentioned, over the last 3 years, we've gone through 4 rounds of competition for the 51 different centers, and many have changed names as we are. So I'll assure you, by the time next time I show you this map, it'll say MMA MEP. This is an organization chart which you can't see very well of how we fit well with MMA. If you look at the far right side, we're one of the departments as a line of business, and we've got our headquarters staff with Dr. Joe as one of our assistant directors. Carolyn Miller is the other assistant director. We have a part-time business person. And then we have our 4 MEP centers with the center directors with names there that you can't read. But it's a strong organization. We're one of the best in the country, and we're very proud of it. One of the things we do very, very successfully as an MEP National Center is that we do strategic planning, and I thought you'd just like to see quickly, this is what we call Goal 5 of our 5-goal strategic goal plan, and this is focused totally on the transition from Innovate MEP to MMA. And I won't go through it all, and it's a little hard to read, but one of the key things is branding, and we've already worked on that. I'll show you at the end our new MMA MEP logo. We want to do a seamless integration. We said we'd have it integrated by the end of year 2. We're going to have this thing integrated this year without any issues. We're expanding our capacity. If you look in your folder, you'll see a seminar schedule for MMA. We're going to help expand that, deepen that, and really come up with a lot of good seminars that we can add to MMA. The distribution of projects has to do with MMA has 10 board districts, and we want to ensure we're meeting all of those. And then a couple things, other things I'll talk about. But we're ahead of schedule in terms of this transition and integration with MEP, and we're very pleased to be part of MMA. Our MEP centers, as Dr. Joe mentioned, we have 4 MEP centers plus 1, and it's Itawamba Community College, which is one of the best outreach community colleges for industry in the state. We have also Mississippi Gulf Coast Community College, which is really focuses a national leader in shipbuilding, particularly with Hunter Ingalls, and also with some of the yards there. And we work very extensively with the Corridor Consortium, which is a 5 community college consortium in northern Mississippi. As a side note, the community college system, based on the work that was done there with our James Williams, the predecessor to the VP of Workforce at Itawamba, and now the executive director of SWIB, got this consortium started, and it's now become the model for Mississippi. There's the middle consortium starting and one on the coast starting. And then we have 2 university centers. Cavs Extension, well known to many of you, has been one of our original MEP centers. We do a lot of great work with them. And then the Polymer Institute, which gives us, at USM, gives us a very unique capability as an MEP in the United States. There's very few that have this polymer capability. I want to just go quickly here because I promised 10 minutes or less. I just mainly want to help you celebrate the MMA MEP. We have really phenomenal resources because of the strength of our institutions and growth services, and Dr. Joe helps lead that for us. We do things from innovation jumpstart, technology commercialization, et cetera. If you have a company that needs to go through what we call an ideation system, in other words, you're looking for opportunities to build new products or markets, let us know, and we can come in and run a one-day thing that'll help you a lot. We have lean solutions, which we're well known for in the MEP solution. We can do just about anything you need to focus on value-added activities. As I mentioned, the polymer services, very unique for an MEP to have this strong capability. Our representatives for our centers are down at the accelerator at the USM, which is beautiful. And we have a new director there, which we're looking forward to working with. Quality systems, again, Six Sigma, a variety of different things we can do for you. At our CAV Center, we run a lot of green belt, black belt type Six Sigma programs. Industrial engineering solutions, plant optimizations, plant layout. Plant layouts are very critical as a first step in your lean journey. So let us know if you need this. And the workforce solutions, about 40% of our projects are in the workforce area, is not surprising with half of our effort through the community college system. And strategic solutions, we're very big now on transformational projects and strategic planning. So how are we working here? Well, we were going back to 2011, we began to have a strong relationship with MDEQ, and we had a small contract to develop our E3 program, which you're going to hear more from Dr. Jordan. And we just have very, very much appreciated the strong partnership we've built with Chris and Carrie and many others at MDEQ. And so the last couple of years, we've been being the subcontractor on the pollution prevention program, which this is one of the examples of the things we've done in helping to organize this enHance meeting. We have a lot of other deliverables, and we're trying, and it's a strong fit to have the MEP program working with MDEQ on this. So that's it, and I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Okay, good. If we could get that second presentation loaded, thanks. So what we want to do next is do a little case study, if you will, of a E3 assessment that we did for Cooper Tire Clarksdale operation several years ago. First of all, just a little bit more about E3. This is a program or initiative that we've been involved with now for several years, about 5 years altogether, and we do appreciate MDEQ's support of this over the years. As Dr. Tice said, it's a focus on sustainable manufacturing. That's what the E3 sort of mantra is all about. In Mississippi, we do sometimes include, and we can include, safety assessments. First of all, E3 stands for Economy, Energy, Environment. And that's the three main areas that traditionally are focused on with the E3. But we can also add safety. We can include sustainability training if companies need that, leadership training and coaching as well to make sure that sustainability happens. We provide our primary function is provide sustainability assessments for small to medium-sized manufacturers. We can provide follow-on technical assistance through our centers or their university affiliations and help with implementation of energy projects. We've completed 7 assessments through the E3 program to date, and we are currently looking for additional sites to conduct assessments. For our first 6, and I haven't updated this to include the 7th, but for our first 6 assessments, the projected impacts included, as you can see, very significant potential savings. Now, it's important to understand these are assessments, that it depends on the company to follow through with recommendations to achieve these. But the potential impacts, or the recommended impacts, included substantial savings in natural gas, electrical power, overall energy costs. The average payback of the proposed energy improvements was 1.4 years, and the quantified economic impact through our surveys, this is actual feedback from the companies that have implemented, is $4.7 million and 74 jobs retained as a result of these assessments and the follow-on actions that these companies have taken. So this ME3 case study on Cooper Tire Clarksdale, I'm sure most of you are familiar with or aware of Cooper Tire in Tupelo, a huge operation where they make tires. But there's also a smaller facility in Clarksdale where they make rubber bladders that are used in tire making. Essentially, they are part of the tire making machine, and they are blown up and expand and form the inside surface, if you will, of the tire in the tire molding machine. So they produce those both for Cooper and potentially for other tire makers as well. It's a 178,000 square foot facility in Clarksdale with 55 employees. I think about 15 of those are in the office and 40 in production. It's essentially a 24/7 operation. Not all operations run that way, but there is something going on there all the time. So in September 2013, on the 23rd and 24th, we conducted a 2-day assessment. This was the second of the ME3 assessments that we had completed. Flex Steel, RP, Rory Pollard here from Flex Steel, was the first one. And so in this case, safety was not requested, so we only did the primary areas of economy, energy, and environment. Our early model for E3 was to get a lot of people involved, all of the stakeholders that we could identify involved, and so we brought a very large team to the assessment. This included 10 individuals that were part of our Mississippi E3 initiative or team. For the energy portion of this, we did have some energy expertise with our group, but we also brought in the Alabama Industrial Assessment Center. Brett mentioned the IEC program a minute ago, from the University of Alabama, and they brought a team of 5, 3 students and 2 faculty. And then from Cooper Tire, and this was something very important about this, is that we had great participation from top management. We not only had the full participation of the plant manager and his team, but we had the corporate energy manager, Frank Schrum, come down from Findlay, Ohio, to be part of this assessment and part of this process. And we thought that was very important to the overall success of the project. So just a real quick overview of the assessment process. We used a pre-assessment questionnaire to collect some basic information. This was the first time we had used this. We did not have it on our first assessment, and we're still continuing to refine this, but this has been very helpful. We did an analysis of energy bills, both electric and gas. We conducted a 2-day in-plan assessment with 3 teams, one focusing on each of the 3 areas of economy, energy, and environment. That included a 1-day energy audit only by the Alabama Industrial Assessment Center. We did a lean assessment and developed a value stream map that's tied to the economy part. We identified over 102 was the list I had, of issues and opportunities that could be addressed. Many of these were no-cost or low-cost opportunities that could be addressed, a lot of them documented with photos. And then we also, in this particular case, there was a need identified, and that one of their key processes had extraordinarily long changeover times, setup times. And so we recommended, and they engaged us for a quick changeover workshop with that particular operation, which greatly reduced, and Albert's going to address the impact of it in just a second, greatly reduced that setup time and improved their overall capacity and productivity. One of the things that Albert doesn't address in his presentation I wanted to is CO2 reduction. One of the reasons that the EPA invests in programs like this is for CO2 reduction. And in this particular case, we were able to document, these are 5 assessment recommendations that came from the Industrial Assessment Center. And I have recently, with Albert's help, confirmed that all of these, except number 4, have been fully implemented. And what you see here are the CO2 reduction estimates from IAC based on the reductions in electricity or gas for each of these assessment recommendations. Number 4 is not completely implemented, but they're actually going to exceed the estimate of CO2 reduction. The recommendation is that they go with a combination of T5 and LED, and Albert told me that they're going all LED, so he's actually going to achieve greater savings than what's indicated in the table. But for this just small project, small operation, we were able to identify 317 tons of projected CO2 reduction, or that turns out to be 5.3%, which we think is significant. And then let's go ahead and bring Albert up then. I'll come back possibly and talk about this after Albert gets done. Yes.
We're going to extend you 5 minutes.
Okay, good. All right.
Go ahead and work on some.
Okay, well, just real quickly then, what we, as you saw from the other slide, our early E3 assessments, we brought up a huge team, and that kind of turned into herding cats, as you might imagine. So what we've done is we've streamlined our model over time, over successive operations. So our new model looks more like this. We're going to have a small team with a one-day in-plant assessment. We recognize it for a small operation, especially tying up your operation for 2 days and your key people for 2 days. It's just too much of an investment for you to make. But what we're going to do is we're going to include the same basic elements, a lean and green assessment that focuses on economy and also to a degree waste reduction, an ASHRAE Level 1 energy audit, a safety audit, which is a mock OSHA inspection if it's desired. And what we'll do is identify low-cost, no-cost opportunities for improvement, potential opportunities for substantial improvements, and then have a follow-up meeting 3 to 4 weeks after the assessment with the potential for follow-on workshops, such as in our case study here, other training or other implementation projects. And again, we're currently looking for sites. And so that's my presentation part of this. And so let's bring Albert up now to talk about the actual results for Cooper and what they've achieved.
This was the Clarksdale, Cooper Tire enHance. There's a couple of photos in here. I want to apologize in advance because they didn't show up properly. They actually linked to another file, so it's kind of hard to see them. But we did the E3 assessment there, and it turned out very well. We've actually increased more jobs than what Dr. Joe and also Dr. Tice both said. We are now up to 122 employees there. So this assessment helped out a lot and helped increase what we had there, and it made a major difference. Which one of these moves this forward?
The one on the right here.
The assessment was performed in September of 2013 at the Clarksdale facility. It is what we call a tire bladder manufacturing facility. We not only produce for Cooper, but we also produce for other tire manufacturers. This is a very intense process, and it has to work great, and it has to be in a very timely manner. The assessment was assisted by the Alabama Industrial Assessment Center, the E3 team, and the Cooper Tire team. It does take some time out of the schedule, but we were willing to do this because that facility was on the verge of closing. And to keep it from closing, we wanted to keep it open and keep it growing, and it has, and we continue to move forward. Like I said, this number that says 55 is no longer true. It has increased quite a bit. The facility size is 178,000 square feet. The primary purpose of that plant is the tire bladders, and the annual production is about 60 million pounds mixed. That's quite a bit of rubber if you don't realize it. It takes a lot to produce those bladders, and also that rubber is also sold to other manufacturers, so it makes a world of difference. Total energy consumption for that facility is $677,000, a little bit over. And that's just some general information. Since this was done, we actually use more energy, but we have increased the size of the facility, and we've also went to larger mixing capacities. So it helped a lot. This is kind of a picture. It is a 24-hour operation. The office staff does work 5 days a week, but the rest of the facility is operating 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. We run continuously around the clock to produce the products that not only that facility uses, but also the other facilities and the ones that are sold. Our electric usage, we kind of broke this out so that everybody could kind of see what was using the most energy there. The mixing department, which is there in the blue, consumes a very large portion, over 62% of the energy there. The mixer motors there are 3,000 horsepower motors. I don't know if any of y'all know a lot about that, but that's a very large motor. And getting ready to install the second one there, it's quite a bit of energy usage there. And we looked at the other aspects there, like lighting and chillers and whatever was necessary, needed to run the process. The natural gas, we looked at the largest user and what we could do to reduce that. Since the bladder presses require steam, we have a boiler. That boiler has a capability of producing 100,000 pounds per hour. It's a lot. And it's a very large user of natural gas, and we were able to do several things to reduce the usage there on that boiler. And it made a world of difference there. Some items that were discovered by the team when they were there walking through that we could change and make a major difference on our energy usage. The steam and condensate lines insulation. Some of this insulation was missing, and we even went to a different type of insulation. The older type was you could install it and you had to tear it apart and install it, but it was a lot harder to do, so a lot of it got left off. Now the new type is easy to install. It's a Velcro type wrap insulation, and it makes a world of difference. The valves, a lot of the valves were left uninsulated. You don't realize how much energy you're actually losing from a valve. And also using a different type of, it's a coating that you have to put on rubber to keep it from sticking together. We were having to heat it. Well, we no longer have to heat that. It made a major difference there. We were using quite a bit of steam to heat that dip. This is kind of a picture of that valve. When you look at it, it's 361 degrees, and that's just glowing. I didn't open. Once you put the insulation on it, it dropped it way down, 107 degrees. A major difference, a lot of energy saved. Steam lines, that was another opportunity. That was bare and open, and we were able to insulate those. This was one of the valves that I was talking about. Like I said, I apologize. That picture didn't show up. Change in lighting. It's 458 watt metal halide fixtures. We're now using all 100% LED. Just on a little side note, the Cooper Tire plant in Tupelo, Mississippi is the first Cooper Tire plant to be 100% LED, inside and out. We even talked to the city, and the street lights now are LED. So everything is LED at that plant. Reducing the energy costs majorly, and that's what we're working at the Clarksdale facility to do the same thing. In the warehouse, where there is no one after a certain hour there, the fixtures, even though they're LED, we now have photo sensors in the center of those. And they shut off. There's no one there, so shut them off. When you go in, they come on and they stay on as long as there's motion in the area. But after that, they shut themselves off. Idle equipment, we had several pieces of equipment that they allowed to run because they were afraid to shut it down because of some issues. Well, we've changed that. That assessment brought forth some opportunities there, and we were able to do that. Infrared surveys, we done several of those and reduced the air compressor consumption from 1,800 RPM to 900 RPM through some recalibration. It made a major difference. It was a 50% reduction. As I'm sure everybody knows, in your facility, compressed air is a major issue, especially when you have leaks. We have, at that facility, just that one, in Tupelo, we have 10 of the old XLE compressors, and they're 400 horse apiece. So it makes a major difference on compressed air. Like I said, that was a picture of the new fixture versus the old fixture, and it had to pull from another file and it didn't want to upload. We used green logic on the conveyors. If there's something there, then it runs. If it's nothing there, cut it off. It'll shut itself off. We had several opportunities there that we took advantage of. This is also another picture of some idle equipment. That large mill there has a 400 horse motor on it that just sat there and it ran. They were afraid to shut it off because they were afraid it wasn't going to start, but like I said, some major changes made some major differences there. The infrared survey also in wiring, we found problems that we didn't know that we had, or this was actually also kind of preventive maintenance. Once we done the survey, some of the items that showed up could have shut the plant down, could have caused a lot of issues, and we were able to get those repaired. And now that they know what to start looking for, we now have a program that we implemented and moved forward with to help us save on energy costs there and also keep the uptime on the machinery. Total overall, we saved over 14.2% at that facility. It was a major, major deal for us. So with the E3 program, it was worth doing the full assessment. If somebody has a facility, I suggest if y'all can get on the list to get it done, I would definitely suggest to get it done. It's a major difference. We actually did some visual management there also, because some of the employees, if they see something and they look at it, they'll crank it wide open. They'll say, well, it needs to be higher, when you didn't actually need that. So we put it there so that they would know you go this distance, no more. Visual management helps a lot in a lot of these cases. We also use the Six Sigma training. We have some training going on there now. We've also used the SMED on the die process. It improved from a 4-hour to a 1-hour changeover. Major difference. A lot more uptime, a lot more running time. The mixing clean out, change out from one stock to another. In processes, it used to take 20 hours to do this change out because you had to do a lot of cleaning to get that from black rubber to white rubber. Now we can do it in 4 hours. Major difference. A lot more uptime, a lot greater benefit to us. Reducing landfill and waste. We now have all of this where we send it to other processes where other people can use it. Reduced by 50%. Made a major difference there. And our slogan in 2015, and that's still true today, is work together, win together. There's nowhere better exemplified than with the collaboration between the E3 and Cooper Tire to achieve significant energy reduction and energy usage and also in landfill, and improve on the processes, all in which Cooper is more competitive and more productive. Does anybody have any questions?
Questions for Albert? Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Set to go? Good. Okay, our next presenter is Jason Darnell from Packard Engine Company. Jason attended Mississippi State University, go Dogs, and earned his bachelor's degree in chemical engineering in 2001 and his master's in chemical engineering in 2004. Upon graduation, he worked as an environmental consultant for WRS Infrastructure and Environment in Tallahassee, Florida, until February 2006. He then took a job as a technical assistance engineer at Viscase, am I saying that right? Viscase Companies in Osceola, Arkansas, until January 2009. He moved back to Mississippi, we're glad he's back, to take a job as environmental engineer for Georgia Gulf, Chemicals and Vinyl in Aberdeen. While at this job, he earned his MBA from Arizona State University. He's highly educated, obviously. He took his current role as the environmental manager at Packard in Columbus in 2013, and he's going to talk to us about using returnable containers to reduce wood waste. Jason Darnell.
Yes. Right side forward.
All right. So, like I said, my name is Jason Darnell. I'm with the Packard Engine Company in Columbus. I'm going to talk to you about wood waste reduction using returnable packaging. So this is an aerial view of our plant. You got this building right here is our admin building. This is our cafeteria, and this is our production building. And this quadrant right here, we machine our heads. And back here, we machine our blocks. And this central area right here, we do our engine assembly. Back here, we test 100% of our engines. It's a 24-minute cycle. And in this quadrant back here, we paint every engine we have, and this is our shipping area. So that's a little bit of a view of our plant from an aerial site. So a little bit about us. We are located in Lowndes County in Columbus. We are very close to Oxabaha County. We are roughly halfway between Starkville and Columbus, right off Highway 82. We manufacture diesel engines for trucks, in particular Peterbilt and Kenworth. We are part of the same company, so we send our engines to Kenworth in Chillicothe, Ohio, and Peterbilt in Denton, Texas. We started production in 2010. We became ISO certified in 2014. We were admitted in the enHance program last year, and we are a zero waste to landfill facility, so that is something we're proud of. So, you know, when looking at different activities that we can do, we want a few different things. First of all, we want to make a significant impact. Second of all, we want to be able to we want to not have a whole lot of added work added to us. You know, some projects you can do, you've got to dedicate resources, and we didn't want that because that takes away from our main purpose. Another thing that we wanted to do is if there was any added benefit that we could get on top of it, you know, then that would be an added plus. So in our strategy, we signed a $6 million capital project in 2014 for returnable packaging. It's managed by a third party, which is good for us because we have thousands of suppliers. If we had to manage where all of our returnable packaging went to and then maintain the packaging, that would take away a lot of resources that we have, so we wouldn't really be able to effectively do that. So we use a third party for that. So instead of us sending it to supplier A, B, and C and monitoring their stock, we just send it to one place and then they monitor it for us. So that works really well for us. So, you know, we use plastic returnable packaging. It's an HDPE, and there are some advantages to that over wood. So just so we're looking at what we're talking about, this is a wood container that we can get various supplies from engine starters to wiring manifolds to almost anything that goes in an engine. It's very rigid, and it's got some advantages, I will say, but this is our returnable packaging. So one of the added advantages, we deal with making engines. There's a lot of repetitive motion. So one thing that we have is we have ergonomic issues. Now, I'm right-handed, as are a lot of people. So when I reach for something, I'll reach with my right hand. That's just a natural thing. We try to tell people, try to alternate hands. do that, but it's not really feasible. It's natural for somebody to use the hand they are. So one thing added advantage is this part right here, it folds down. So it's more of a natural motion instead of having to reach over the top. Also, this part right here on the packaging, it folds down so that instead of sending, off to recycle a very limited number, we can compact the packaging down and send a lot more in one load. So that cuts off transportation costs as well. So now we're getting into the numbers. So in 2015, when we started, in Q1, we had roughly 314 tons of wood that we produced. Q2, 355, Q3, 315. Q4 is always a slow period for us. We had 220 tons. Now, if you compare it year over year, in Q1, we roughly reduced it 95 tons over that year. Q2, roughly 120. Q3, roughly 108, 110. And then in Q4, it was roughly 60. But a total of 379, almost 380 tons of wood over the course of the year. Now, I know what y'all are thinking. Anybody can do this. Let me just not make engines, and we'll cut our waste. So here's the real slide that is of real interest to most people. They normalize it based on a pound of production or a unit. So over 2015 to 2016, we roughly cut it between 18 and 20 pounds of wood per engine that we produced. So that's roughly a 22.5% reduction. Now, if you look, this number right here to this number right here is roughly 30%. That's really good. That's roughly 25 pounds per engine that we're doing. Now, that's a significant impact. We've actually cut down on our ergonomic issues. Our ergonomic issues have gone down, and I'm not going to be so arrogant to say that it's all because of this. It's not. There's a lot of work that's going on to help cut that down, but I will say that it's part of it. It's part of the equation that has helped cut our ergonomic issues down. So there's also some added benefit to the wood. One, we still have a lot of wood, as you can see. So one of the things that we did was we donated our wood to the Greene County and Sumter County, Alabama Extension Services. And they had a program where they did a gardening program, and one of them involved elementary school children. So this is our picture where we donated. It was about 4 pallets of wood. Relatively a small amount, but it's good PR. And this was the picture they sent, at the end. So that, it's good PR, it's good for us. It's been a good project for us, and as we continue in the project, more of the returnable packaging is hitting the supply chain, and we continue to actually see a reduction in the wood per engine. So as we move forward, that's part of our ISO program. We fully expect that to continue. Our goal for this next year is a 10% reduction over what we have already. So it's part of our ISO. In conclusion, we use returnable packaging. It's just an HDPE. We've reduced our wood by roughly 380 tons year over year, and it's roughly 22.5%. So are there any questions on that? Yes?
Are there any costs associated with third-party management?
There is, but that was part of the $6 million. They are responsible for the maintenance of the packaging itself. They are responsible for sending it to each supplier. So that is one advantage, though. It's worked well for us. Some companies might have the resources to be able to do that themselves in-house. We just don't. Yes?
So it seems like it's a big reduction on the waste generation, and you donate some portion. What is the other method that you do to fully eliminate?
All right, so we are a zero waste to landfill facility. So we have one location that we send it to. They chip it, and so it's recycled. So then they sell it from there. I can. It's Go Box in Columbus. It's just down the street from us. So, any other questions? Yes.
What's the lifespan on one of those returnable packages? Y'all been into it long enough yet?
No, we haven't seen any go bad. We haven't had to really replace any yet. So, I would expect it to be in the 5 to 10 year range. Any other questions?
We're up to our break a little bit early, so let's take a break. But we want to come back here at 10:15 for our next presentations. Thank you.
Okay. Lost my spot here. But in keeping with today's theme, we're going to move on to our recycling and waste reduction panel discussion. My name is Jennifer Milner. I work with the Mississippi Department of Environmental Quality. I'm the state recycling coordinator, and this is actually my first time moderating a panel. So, in preparation for today, I did a little reading up, a little research, and I discovered something fairly shocking. My husband is right. Yeah, I know, and as all us married folks, we hate to admit that when our spouse is right, but he is right about something. It is not always about me. And that's especially true today, because as the moderator, it's not about me. It's about our panelists up here that we're going to introduce in just a little bit, and it's about you, the audience. We've got lots of sectors and entities represented today in manufacturing and industry, federal facilities, colleges and universities, local governments, a wide variety of folks with a wide variety of interests. But we're going to discuss a topic today that we will all be interested in, we feel like, and that's the commodity markets of paper, metals, and plastics. What are the current conditions, what drives these markets, and how you can get the best value for your recovered materials. So of course, we all want to do the right thing for the environment. That's why we're here today. We want to conserve natural resources, prevent pollution, and our customers, whether that be taxpayers or product consumers, they expect that from us. They want that from us, but also they expect, a high quality products and services as well as a low price. So in doing that and being successful in our waste reduction and recycling programs and practices, we have to consider the costs and getting the most bang for your buck, so to speak, and getting the best value for your recovered materials is part of that. So for you all to get the best bang for your buck today with this discussion, we've invited 3 panelists with the knowledge, experience, and expertise with these different commodities to help you learn more about these issues and concepts so that you can go back and apply these ideas at your various organizations. Without further ado, we'll go ahead and let our panelists introduce themselves, and we'll start down on the end with Don. If you would just tell us, who you are and who you're with, and how what commodity you're going to focus on today, and how your company fits in with that in the material recovery, supply chain, and kind of your involvement in the state of Mississippi.
Sure. My name is Don Omar. I'm manager of General Recycling. General Recycling is a Nucor company. Nucor consists of steel and steel products groups, which consume a great deal of scrap. There's 18 steel mills, which can have a capacity of 27 million tons of steel produced, and that requires about 20 million tons of recycled scrap. We are North America's largest steel company, and we have 5 other, right here in Mississippi, 5 other divisions. One in Flowwood, Nucor Steel, one Harris Rebar in Flowwood, Kirby South Buildings in Starkville, Skyline in Iuka, and of
is Scott Brown. So I work for Pratt Recycling. My responsibility, I know it says sales manager, but I'm responsible for our division. Recycling is responsible for buying all the paper for our paper mills. I have the southern region, and I support the mill outside of Atlanta, Georgia, and Conyers, and Shreveport. We handle an area from Virginia, the Carolinas, Tennessee, Kentucky, Arkansas, Missouri, Oklahoma, and Texas, and that's where the reps that we have supporting that area. When we get into other areas, we go into our other mill regions. We have two other mills, one in Valparaiso, Indiana, and the other on Staten Island. You might have ever seen the barge of paper coming out of New York City that goes directly to our mill and is unloaded right at the docks on our mill. A little bit about Pratt is we're the fourth largest box manufacturer in the United States. We're the largest privately owned box manufacturer. Not a lot of people know Pratt, but you use Pratt boxes just about every day. If you go into the Home Depot and look at the moving section, where we make all the pop boxes for the Home Depot, you will see bubble wrap, tape, just tags, anything to do with moving. Usually that's going to be all of our products. The other thing that you would recognize is that if it fits, it ships with the Postal Service. Those are Pratt boxes. We also do the boxes, a lot of boxes for Amazon, Blue Apron, HelloFresh, P&G. So we're really not really, the name is not recognized, but we do produce a lot of boxes. We have the largest box manufacturing plant right outside Chicago, and we're shipping anywhere from 30 to 40 truckloads a day into the Chicago market. So we're mainly a box manufacturer. With that, our mills, we make all the material that for our boxes at our mills. So I have the responsibility of the developers to find the tonnage to bring it into the mill. So we work in all the states. Anything in Mississippi usually is pulled into our Shreveport mill.
Okay, and Mark obviously is not in the plastics industry, but it being Earth Week, lots of people are booked. So he's going to be a remarkable stand-in, though, for the plastics industry, and sort of talk about his experience with plastics and the different organizations and folks that he has worked with.
Is that my introduction?
You can
I'm Mark
go ahead.
Williams, and I am going to sort of try to stand in for the plastics recycling industry. Today we made a lot of contacts, but a lot of difficulty trying to get someone who's able to come. So the industry is pretty robust in the Southeast, though. We have the largest HDP recycler in the world, just across the state line outside of Alabama, and PET plastic recyclers also in North Alabama and others that we work with and work to supply. And so I'll talk a little bit about that, but I also maybe we may segue into some other things like tires and electronics and other things if that's of interest. So.
All right. Well, let's just go ahead and dive into to the questions here. Don, again, we'll start with you. How would you describe the current market conditions for metals? I know that Nucor and General Recycling deal mostly with ferrous metals, but if you could talk about non-ferrous metals as well, and what are the primary factors currently influencing those markets?
Well, scrap and steel, fall hand in hand. Scrap consumption goes up as steel consumption means steel production goes up. Right now, the demand for our products is at reasonable levels. We are faced with a global overcapacity of steel production. subsidize their industries so they can continue to employ their people. China alone, their total steel capacity last year was 1.1 billion tons. They only have an in-house consumption of 700 million tons. So you're looking at an excess of 400 billion tons of steel production that needs to go someplace. So just to put that in perspective, the consumption in the United States is only about 90 million tons. So they have 4 times overcapacity than we consume. So that's always difficult to deal with. I guess that's it.
Okay. Scott, we'll move on to you, and you talked a little bit about this in your opening, but in paper we're seeing kind of a big switch from the newspapers and magazines. Most people look at news now and those type of things on their tablets or their computers, and lucky for Pratt, we're seeing a lot of online ordering and lots of those Amazon boxes being used. So are those sorts maybe some of the things that are influencing the markets? Maybe talk about that a little bit and just the current market and again what's influencing that.
Well, I know if you all, those that used to read the paper. And so the newspaper market has the whole market for newsprint has really fallen dramatically versus 30 years ago when that was everybody was interested in getting in recycling news. So, and what is actually happening in the market is the newsprint is being put in with the mixed paper now. So there's really a very small market for newsprint over what it used to be. A lot of the insulators are still using newsprint. We at Pratt buy mainly corrugated and mixed paper. Now the mixed paper is going to mainly comes from the MRFs that are sorting single stream. And we're probably the major buyer of, or not probably, I know we're the major buyer in both Shreveport and Conyers market of material that's been sorted through a MRF. The other thing that's going on with the market, I had mentioned to Jennifer earlier, we didn't want to bring some charts, but corrugated, just an example, in 1997 to 1999, the average price of corrugated was $61. In 2006 to 2008, it was $86. 2009 to 2011, it was $103. This year, this quarter, it averages $152. Now that's really what I would say. It's a false market, as Don had mentioned. A lot of it is impacted by the Asian buying. You have countries that are developing countries, the India and Vietnam, and then you have the giant of China that are buying. China doesn't have, these countries don't have the infrastructure to collect corrugated, so they need the United States corrugated for the strength. When you buy a box that's the yellowish looking, is usually an Asian box, but if you look on the inside, it's usually a better liner sheet because they're using the United States to sort of the U.S. corrugated to make the box stronger. Strength. So a lot of times we're sort of dominated by what Asian is doing as far as the export market. There was, and I said the average was 152. The market, export market delivered to the pier just 2 months ago was over $200. Now they're trying to go back down to, the current market is like down at 145 range. So what is happening is that the Asians are trying to force the price down. So to what I would say is that the market is very volatile right now. Mixed paper has been, although not a lot of mixed paper goes into the export market because of, if some of you knew the green fences from a couple of years ago. But it's still very volatile, and sometimes you don't know whether it's the mill buyers panicking and afraid they're not going to get. When we start getting high prices, whoever's paying the high price gets the paper, and mills can't afford. I would lose my job if our mill ran out of paper. So I mean, we're going to keep the paper flowing. So, but I would just say, don't be doing anything based on today's market, because it's volatile. I've always said, and I've said it within the industry, if it goes up fast, in January, I think it rose up $40. That's a phenomenal increase. It's 5 or 10 usually. If it goes up fast, it's going to come down fast. So we're just in a very volatile market right now.
All right, fair enough. Mark, I'm sure you and most of our audience is familiar with the classic movie, The Graduate, and we all remember that famous line when Benjamin was getting some advice on his future. An older gentleman told him, plastics. Now, in 1967, we maybe didn't really see that, but we're definitely seeing that now. Most of the products that we consume or come in contact with do have plastics in them, and we're seeing a move from glass to plastics. So talk a little bit about your experience and what you've heard, on the current market conditions for plastics, and what are the factors influencing those markets?
Well, most of you know that markets for different resin types vary. Number one and number two plastics, what most consumer containers are manufactured with. So those are where our principal recycled material markets are. Plastic film still has a steady market. The last 2 years has been very rough on the plastics industry, PET in particular, and a lot of that has to do with, of course, the price of petroleum and how that has greatly influenced the market for recovered plastics. But it's also influenced the decision to build additional virgin plastic capacity in the U.S. Just in the last few years, we've seen 3 trillion metric tons of new virgin capacity built in the United States to help keep up with demand. That's not all U.S. demand, but also global demand. And because of that excess capacity, we've seen that effect with the prices for recovered plastics. So, but we believe that has stabilized. I don't think you're going to see value of plastics creep up a lot, but I don't think you'll see it go back down. At one time, there was a lot of gloom and doom in the plastics recovery industry. I think that the excess capacity has not caused the problem that was anticipated. You heard Scott talk about the tightening global contamination concerns. You saw the ring fence in China and how that has greatly affected international plastics markets. But you've also seen the strength of the dollar, the U.S. dollar, that has also, you deal with that in your own products, affected the value or the purchase of U.S. goods overseas. And so all those things, and then of course lightweighting, the content of the plastic bottle and the plastic container today is much lower than it was a number of years ago, and so that makes recovery a little bit difficult. Overall, it probably is a positive thing, but it does make recovery difficult. So there are a lot of factors that influence the value of plastics, and although we do have strong capacity in the Southeast, we just don't have the collection infrastructure to help drive that capacity. And I mentioned the KW Plastics over in the state of Alabama. They are the largest HDPE plastics recycler in the world. The amount of material they collect from the state of Alabama will run their plant for about 1 day. The amount of plastic HDPE they collect from Mississippi will run their plant for another day. So their capacity is there. They import a lot of material in from other areas of the country. So it's an important thing that we can continue to build a collection infrastructure in the United States, and hopefully you can be a part of that. And so I guess that's what
All right. You've all, talked about China and the Asian market. I'd like to think that a few weeks ago at Mar-a-Lago, President Trump and President Xi, talked about this, I'm sure, before that big, beautiful chocolate cake came out, hopefully. But talk a little bit, about we're seeing, as Mark mentioned, a strong U.S. dollar. We're still recovering from the 2008 recession, and we're seeing international markets contract. How does this affect domestic markets, and are there potential benefits there? And Don, again, we'll start with you.
Yeah, our economy has been in recession for maybe 16 years. Our GDP growth has been lower than 3%, I think, forever. And it's had a severe effect on our manufacturing and our steel industry. But at the same time, our economy is still one of the strongest economies in the world. So our dollar is attractive compared to other currencies. And a couple of things happen in the metals industry that really directly affects us with that strong dollar. The United States forever has been a big scrap exporting country. And as that dollar gets stronger, that makes it difficult for the people to buy our scrap, the Turkeys, the Vietnams, the Taiwans, Asian countries, other Asian countries. It makes it difficult to take the scrap off the coast. Our coasts are all big exporters. And so what that does, that drives them to try to find other markets for their scrap. And they go to Europe, they go to Russia, and maybe even some of the Middle East. And so we're not exporting that scrap, and that drives the prices down here in scrap. At the same time, they're producing that steel over there, the cheaper scrap than we're buying over here, and they're producing it, shipping it back here because our dollar is strong, and it makes their currencies, our market's very attractive to their currencies. So that's a big problem.
So it's sort of hurting domestic markets as well, then.
Yes.
Okay. Scott, would you?
It's doing that.
It's all your fault.
Put it over the top and it doesn't do it for them.
The mic has something against paper, apparently.
Well, certainly, in the paper markets, a lot of it is determined by consumer spending. So, we see the latest statistics that came out that said consumer spending is down relative to consumer spending, and that's in some ways good. But we make boxes for products that people are buying. So if the consumer spending is down, then we're not producing as many boxes. We're privately owned, and we seem to be sort of protected from that because of our network of selling. But certainly in China, you wonder, and pure speculation, nothing official, you wonder if China started to buy just because they were concerned about what was going to happen. Were there going to be tariffs put on? What are they going to, do? And so nothing has happened. So I think so that might be causing their demand to be down. There are some not very many orders for export of paper right now. That's going to throw an excess on the market, which means the mills don't have to pay as much, so the price could go down. We don't think the price is going to go drastically down. We think it's going to drop down. We don't know. I really don't know. Historically, it has dropped, but we still think it's going to be strong. But the dollar, when the dollar is strong, it means they need more dollars, and they have to have Morion to buy the dollars to buy the materials. So, we do see the pressure of them trying to push the market down. The one issue that we see as far as availability of tonnage is we are big buyers of mixed paper. It was mentioned that a lot of people are buying online. The retail stores are not having the generation of corrugated like they used to. And then the biggest supply of mixed paper right now is at the household. How much goes into a household that is thrown away and goes to the landfill? So we do a lot to try to mine the paper out of it. But for the most part, the dollar being strong does impact the export market, which will send the price down. Paper's a true supply and demand market. Economics is just, always the way it is. But one interesting thing about the paper, and this is maybe a little off the subject, I had said to somebody, this is the strangest market. The lower the price goes, the better quality demand the mills have on the paper. As the price goes up, waste paper dealers tend to put in, I used to call it corrugated helper when I was running a mill. You put in a little mixed paper because the mill want it. They got to get it. So it is a strange phenomenon on our market with the pricing.
What he said. So, I can't add. The international markets for plastics are similar. Similarly influence the strength of the dollar, the contamination standards for international markets now influence that. Mexico's a big buyer of material as well, and the strength of the dollar may drive into European materials. So it does greatly influence markets, but of course the excess domestic market, the new capacity of domestic markets, which sell a lot overseas as well, influences that. So it's a little different there for plastics from that standpoint, perhaps. But I would say that there may be some benefits for plastic markets in the U.S. Due to the international markets. It may force more material to domestic markets. I've talked about the fact that the plant in Alabama can only run for a day on what they collect from the state of Alabama for the entire year. So that's a challenge. So maybe that forces more material there, strengthens that domestic market. But obviously we're in a global age now, so materials have to be able to flow.
Well, just one other thing I would add as far as the market, because it does with plastics. Mentioned green fences. I don't know if you all are familiar with green fences. This was a couple of years ago where China said, the United States, you're essentially dumping garbage on us, so we're going to stop it. So it stopped and it impacted plastics probably greater than paper. But one thing that China has started doing, which is causing a little repercussions in the market, if they've started inspecting every container coming into China. And so that's slowing down the containers being unloaded. It's backing it up. They're backing off buying because they don't have the they don't want to get the containers over there and have them sit while the inspections are going on. So, it's a little bit of at a time when we're looking for containers in Asia to come back to the United States with Christmas goods start coming back in the summer. So that's having a little bit of an impact on the market as well.
Well, China's our new BFF now, so I'm sure all that'll be fine. Let's move on to our next question, and I'm going to ask you all to kind of look in your crystal ball, put your Karnak hat on, whatever you prefer, and just kind of look into the future for us, and just what based on your experience, and I know that we're in a time where you've probably not experienced anything like this before. A volatile election, a ever-changing administration. Talk a little bit about though what you see for the future for the markets. Do you anticipate that they'll stay flat? That they'll strengthen. Don, let's start with you for metals. What are you seeing for the ferrous metals? Sure, but what about the non-ferrous metals? Aluminum, are those doing better or what?
This is time we stick in a disclaimer, right?
Sure.
Talk about crystal balls. We see the current political environment as favorable to supporting manufacturing and growing the economy. We've seen in the last, 2017, a significant improvement over 2015 and 2016. Scrap was, I think, at a low in 2016 at about 160 bucks a ton. It's back up about $300 a ton. We see things like the talk about trade rulings and tariffs being added and supported very much by the current administration. We are also cautiously optimistic that we'll get that tax reform and an infrastructure bill. But the infrastructure bill, not so much this year, maybe 2018, if it does affect us. It's going to help in 18 more than 2017, we believe. We believe that there is some optimism in companies that they are creating jobs or adding jobs, and that's going to increase consumer spending, which increases consumer purchases of steel products, housing growth, and things like that. We see also the return of the oil industry, we think, has had a big influence on our steel business. The oil industry consumes a lot of steel. As far as the non-ferrous markets, we think that's going to lag behind what we're seeing in the ferrous markets. Again, there's going to be a lot of imports of non-ferrous metals, and we see that staying relatively flat. Copper is going to trade between 250 and 275 for quite some time. We see people and dealers putting more focus on the ferrous markets because they're starting to make money in those markets again.
All right.
Okay, not to add on to what he said, I agree with everything that you said on that. Our fiscal year ends in June, so we're in the middle of projecting our 2018 budget. We see a drop in the corrugated, a little drop in the corrugated, but we see it fairly consistent for what we say July 2018 is July of this year through June of next year. So we see it staying higher than what we've seen, but not as high as what it is right now. It's just our projection. We do have concerns with, we always worry about not having enough paper. So in some ways the market is good because it strengthens and causes more people to collect, and we have more availability of paper. And some of the concerns we have is we do have, you have so many costs associated, and again, with the tax cut would help a lot on that. But for the most part, a little bit of a drop down, but we feel like a strong market.
Mark, let's go to you and talk a little bit about the future for plastics outsides of ones and twos as well, if you would.
Well, I think you're going to see a pretty flat market for plastics. You're not going to see strengthening. I don't think the predictions will be as dire as originally thought. When you look at the excess capacity that's being built in the U.S., but I think it is going to have an effect on pricing, and so it will affect the demand. Outside of the ones and twos, you are seeing new markets for film and number fives and other materials. There's an increased focus by the recycling industry on bulky rigid plastics and looking at sectors like grocery stores and others that have a lot of plastics that are under collected. So I think you're seeing the industry look for material, the recycling industry that has been under collected in the past, and I think you'll see that focus continue. I don't think you'll see pricing go up or change. I think it will continue to remain flat, and that's been a difficult challenge for recyclers right now. So.
All right, we're getting a little short on time, so we'll kind of move on and talk a little bit about the values of the recovered materials and how our audience can protect the value of their recovered material. Don, I know we don't see a lot of contamination necessarily in metals, but talk a little bit about any issues with contamination and what business and industry can do to prevent that.
Well, there is contamination in metals. We have to inspect every load that we buy, and we do a lot of rejections. There's people that will try to sell sand and concrete as metals, believe it or not.
Wow.
We have an opportunity, since we pay for each load that we buy, we can reject that load, and that costs that supplier quite a bit of money because he's afraid to get up to us, and that load has to go back and he has to resort it, so we can have a pretty good influence on him. All of our we have again a first inspection at our scale, and then when our crane operators are unloading loads, they've all been trained to inspect it as they unload. And we've quit doing business with customers that can't get disciplined in their loading of the materials and sorting it correctly. We've had to cut them off. So yeah, it does influence, and it costs us money. Often we take deductions. We don't necessarily reject every load, but we'll take deductions, and so we have to have some discipline.
Any advice you would give the audience on preventing contamination?
Well, if you have, if you're manufacturing scrap from your process, or you're creating scrap from your process, you just have to train your employees and tell them that if they contaminate that scrap, your company loses money. So employee training is a big part of that, I would say.
All right, Scott,
Well, we
contamination
always-
more of an issue
we
in
have
paper.
the contamination in paper that we have to worry. If it's not paper, it's not going to run through our system. We have a great system that can handle and can pull it out of the system, but it just causes a shrink for us that we really don't want. We don't want to buy a 1,000-pound bale of mixed paper and have 400 tons. We do get metal, we do get concrete, we get bowling balls, we get deer heads, we get all the stuff that comes in it. I mean, if it's not, if it's not paper, it's a contamination. And to restate what you said, it's training the employees. But I will say, just to add another, if you're thinking about going into recovering some of your waste, find your buyer first and see what they will take. It's very important because mills take different items, and it's very important. Don't start a program only to find out nobody wants the material. Find your buyer first, and then develop your program of what you will be able to sell it for.
Mark, some comments on plastics and contamination?
A lot of this depends on what you're collecting. Some of you, the only plastics you have at your plant are the break room plastics, and so the idea of that you're really just, usually that stream is sort of being fed into the local municipal stream, and it's going to be sorted, so contamination may not be the issue perhaps. There are contamination in bales. Some of the biodegradable plastics that we see today certainly is a contaminant for plastics. Other plastics that there's a tolerance level there, but that can be sorted out in the process. But glass and other metals and other things also are contaminants for plastics. Those of you who have processed plastics, though, that is a different animal, so to speak, and that's where you have to work with your recycler and make certain that you are collecting and baling or however you're preparing it for shipment, that you are getting them the material that is of value to them. So I just encourage the folks to work with their recycler, whoever's recovering that, and just focus on collection in general and increasing collection of material in the plant. But of course, reducing the plastic on the front end, reducing that is certainly an important part of this as well. And that, to me, is really where you need to start from an industrial standpoint, is reducing what you have to put out in the stream anyway. So.
All right. Well, let's move on to the next question. And another issue that businesses and industries are having is finding a legitimate recycler that's accessible to them, especially in our state. Unfortunately, we sometimes have to go to neighboring states. But we also have seen, especially with market conditions the way they've been, we've had people to collect materials and then just walk off and leave them in a warehouse, or worse, set them on fire or something to that effect. So, Don, let's start with you and just talk a little bit about how our business and industry folks can find those legitimate recyclers, and what are some things that they can do and that us in state and local government can do to help bring a stability to those service providers.
That's a pretty difficult question. When you talk about legitimate recyclers, anybody and their brother can get in the scrap business by just going around and picking up scrap at people's homes. Even on garbage days, you see people putting steel out on their driveways for garbage collection. Well, that's got value, so you got people going around and picking up that value. Make them legit. I don't know how you make those people legit. You got a lot of people trying to cheat the network. You got the governments. We got in the state of Mississippi, we got an opportunity for people to register as a recycler. And in a real small mom and pop operation, or a guy that's got a mobile truck, he can register in the state of Mississippi as a metal recycler for, I think it's $200. Well, that's the kind of guy that's not going to fall. We got in the state of Mississippi, we got a metal theft law, which is very restrictive on how you buy some metals. Those kind of people do not follow that law. So I guess the most important thing is to help support law enforcement to try to eliminate people like that. It's not always necessary to pass more laws. Sometimes that can stop recycling. There's bigger hitters that pass certain laws that they don't even understand. It stops our business. So it's a difficult problem.
Some good comments. Scott, what did you say about paper?
Well, with paper, the big item is the freight cost. So you have to, the cost to get it to the end user and how you have it processed. So there are going to be times when you will want to use a local processor that will consolidate it and put it into a load. We buy truckload quantities. So you have to look at who you're selling to, how long have they been in the business, have they weathered up and down markets. And I mentioned to Jennifer, we're in a volatile market right now. Last time was beginning of 2009. The time before that was 1994. And there were a lot of people that just thought the world was great. And what's going to happen is what's bad. And talk about the people coming into the market, you have people jumping into the market, buying, and then the market collapse. They don't have the cash flow to pay for the expensive material that they bought 30, 60 days ago. So you just have to look at how long the person has been around, have they weathered some markets. And I'm not saying we have some great suppliers that are brand new in the market. And I'm not saying anything against any supplier. You just have to look at it at your supplier. Know your market before you go and sell it. Know what the market is. Talk to several people. If something sounds a little too good to be true, it probably is not true. And so you just have to watch, be diligent and don't just jump on the most, the best price you got there, and look at the long term and how long this person's been around, or, the viability of it being around.
Mark.
Collection can be a difficult thing in certain areas of our state for certain types of recyclables. And, there are lots of opportunities to work cooperatively with other industries at who's collecting and how often they're collecting, and are there ways to cooperate, are there ways to piggyback on a local government program, are there ways to backhaul material if you've got a shipping at your plant, and then looking at opportunities again to work and cooperate, and looking to the state if you're looking for, or to the industry, the larger industry, the recycle, the end user of the material, the processor of the material. They can help you connect with a legitimate collector. I think those are perhaps some opportunities to solve that collection issue.
All right, well, we have one final question, sort of a two-part question. Is there any emerging issues in any of the commodities that we haven't talked about today? And also some final words of encouragement to our audience to stick with their waste reduction and recycling programs, even when the markets are a little hard to predict. And Don, again, we'll start with you.
I think, there's a lot of issues right now, especially with what's going on with the new administration in these volatile areas in the world that can disrupt, what we're trying to do. But locally, every year at this time, from January to about March, I get very nervous because our legislature goes in sessions, and they can come up with some issues every year. And they dream up title bills that can hurt our industry. And fortunately, this year we got through it. They were pretty busy with the budget, I guess, and other things, so they kind of left things alone in our industry. But there's always constant new things come up with regulations, unneeded regulations, and unneeded laws. So.
We know a little something about the being nervous about the legislature, but did you have any advice, any words of encouragement to kind of stick with it, stay the course?
Yeah, I really don't have much advice.
All right, we appreciate your honesty. Scott, what about you?
We always look at where we're going to find our paper. Commercially corrugated is, there are various. And Mark, you may know, 75–80% corrugated commercially is collected. That's great, but it's drastically reduced by what's going into the households. We know that is an untapped market, so we're always looking at ways to capture more. Of course, your problem is you put in a great curbside recycling program, and if you don't have people participate, you're not going to get it. But there is a lot, we like to tend to sometimes go to a landfill and just see how much is going into the landfill. So we think, I know that's another market we'll be looking at, where the more and more we have e-commerce and the buying, the more and more we get concerned about not being able to recover those boxes that the material came into your house. And so that's something that we have to look at and see what we can do to improve that. Fortunately, I should not go ahead and say this. We got the legislation, we got hit so hard back, I can't remember, it was the 80s or late 70s, with all this, how much recycled content you have to have and all that stuff. So it actually has been pretty good. We maybe more worry about what cities are going to do, or some policy that they're going to make. At one time, there was a thing called flow control where they were trying to control all the material, anything that's coming out of the city. Those are kind of sometimes are not really good programs. But for us, we have 4 paper mills in the South. We consume approximately 100,000 tons a month of paper. We need paper. Now, you might not like the price, because if you're sitting in, what do you think? I'm just trying to think real quick where somebody, the problem is sometimes is that the freight is too expensive. We will take it, but we have to factor in the freight. But for us, just any program you can come up, we're interested in talking with you. We'll tell you if it's good or not good, or if it's price effective for us to handle.
All right, Mark, and plastics?
I'll be quick because I know we're out of time, but stay the course with recycling. Markets come and they're up and down, but just stay the course. Educate yourself. Talk to your recycler about issues, collection issues, contamination issues. Talk to your local government about ways to cooperate, partner, and talk to your overall waste contractor. If you don't have a recycling program now, but you have a collection bin, talk to them about their ability to provide recycling services to you. Most of our waste industry can provide that, and see if there are ways to see that. Also, one of the things that I see is that people have a waste contract and they'll sign this contract, and so that contract will say, well, we're going to have so many pulls from our garbage bin, and it really doesn't have anything to do with whether the bin's actually full. So make sure that what your service contract fits your needs. But also look for ways to reduce waste and reduce the amount of material having to be recycled and recovered. I know Scott's not going to want to hear this, but when I worked in the snack food industry, we had a carton reuse program. We used our cartons over and over and over again, and then we did, of course, recycling. So, but look for ways to actually reduce waste and reduce what has to be recovered and recycled. That's the thing I would encourage you to do.
All right. Again, I want to call your attention to the slide, and if you didn't get your question answered today, if you have a comment or want to talk to one of our panelists or myself, please, jot down that contact information and let us know. I want to thank Don and Scott and Mark again for serving on our panel today, and thank you for being great listeners. And I'll turn it over to Dr. Joe. Thank y'all.
So our next speakers, we have Keith McMullen from Holmac Corporation, and we also have Lance Stogner from Huber Corporation, which is, if I'm not mistaken, part of...
We're sister companies.
Right, sister companies, okay. So I'm going to go ahead and introduce both of them together, and then we'll let them do their thing. Keith McMullen received a BS degree in Mechanical Engineering Technology from the University of Southern Mississippi. I was on the faculty. I don't know if we've ever talked about this. We may have overlapped just a little bit.
We did.
And since then, he's been employed with Holmac Corporation in Bay Springs for the last 25 years. He currently holds the position of Corporate Safety Director, where he is heavily involved in safety and environmental processes and procedures, and serves as the company coordinator for the enHance program. He has numerous certifications, a few of which include Certified Manufacturing Technologist, Hazardous Materials Technician, and NFPA 1001 Firefighter. In addition, he serves as ISO 14001 advisor for the company and is an authorized OSHA outreach trainer. Keith also serves his community as a part-time paramedic, so he's a very busy guy. We also have Lance Stogner. Lance was a late addition. We're glad he's here. Received a BS degree in Industrial Technology from Mississippi State University in 2014. Go Dogs. Lance is employed with Huber Corporation as team leader over welding and fabrication of pressure vessel units. He's on the environmental and safety committees for the company, and he's recently completed the OSHA 10 course. So I'll leave it to you guys in terms of how you handle the presentation.
Thank you.
everybody hear me, or am I talking too loud? Or I was talking to some of my comrades when I was coming up here to do this presentation. They said you're going to have to calm it down a little bit. I usually get told, because I'm in a training environment, I usually bounce around, jump around, and talk kind of fast. Because so y'all, if I get to going too far advanced, please give me a heads up, stop me a little bit. Again, I am Keith McMullen. I am Corporate Safety Director at Holmac Corporation. Talking to Mr. Chris and Mr. Carey, we became there's our things. Holmac became an enHance member back in 2013. We actually re-upped last year. And in doing so, we have 3 facilities in Bay Springs, Mississippi, Plant 1, 2, and 3. And one of the requirements of enHance certification is that you either have to do a community project or you have to be a mentorship, or elect to be a mentor for a different company. Well, with 3 facilities in Bay Springs, Mississippi, and I'm not sure how many people know about the size of that, there's not many community projects out there that wouldn't affect pretty much everybody. You do 1 or 2 and everybody's been touched. So what we decided to do is, as we got our Plant 1 and Plant 2 facilities, we did some community projects, but our Plant 3 facility, we just decided to become a mentor for another company. Well, it became a little bit slow at first because we really didn't have anybody coming to us. We weren't talking to anybody. But in 2013, Keith Huber Corporation as well as Holmac Corporation worked into a partnership and became sister companies, at which time we decided to, hey, this is a great time, great effort for us to go out and do our mentorship and do what we can, help out this other company, and let's see if we can't get some things going, especially from both the environmental as well as manufacturing and everything that we had there. So in 2013, Holmac Corporation did begin mentoring Keith Huber Corporation. One of the first things we did is we went down, and I say we, myself as well as some other members from different facilities, we went down and we looked and saw what they were doing. Keith Huber was a company that had been in business. It's not like we came in, we're taking over anything. They were already building products, but they had their own ways of doing things. Had to look at those. What are you doing? What are you doing to, environmentally friendly? What do we need to do to try to help you? What's some of the things that we could do to help you with that? Well, at first we did some simple changes. Just some things that I guess had just never really been looked at and really been thought about it. They were a fairly small company, about 60 employees, 65 employees. Of that, there was probably 10 or so in the administrative office. The rest were in the facilities, and they were building their products. So what can we do to try to help them? Now, in business, kind of going along with the workshop title this year, Success in Sustainable Manufacturing, when you're talking to the big wigs, and I call them the big wigs, it's all about the dollar. Well, if you're not making money or if you're having to spend too much of it, what happens? All of a sudden your profits are going down. Well, my task was to kind of prove how some of the environmental issues as well as the safety issues can actually save money. And that's what we did. We did that by coming in, look at some simple changes that we could do and actually save some money for the company so that we could also be better environmentally friendly and head for things. So we did not only the simple changes, we looked at some system evaluations and any deficits they had or what we saw. So one of the first things we did is we looked at the waste streams. They were getting rid of their trash. They were getting rid of everything illegal, and not illegally, legally. But we wanted to make that better. And how could we make that better? That's one of the things that we could do is to help them and help us as a company. So we looked at that, and I'm going to talk about a couple of the waste streams here in a minute that we looked at. We did some implementation of process controls. Some of the stuff that they did was just, let's throw it away and we'll figure it out. Well, there's some things that we can do to better utilize that product and so forth. Better control of our hazardous waste. Now that was the one that I really jumped on pretty quick because they weren't doing it illegal. It's just we could have done it a lot better. They were actually a SQG, small quantity generator, and they really didn't need to be. What they were doing, they needed to refine their processes a little bit, and we did a lot of that. That's one of the, I guess you can call it, crowning achievements there that I really enjoyed working with them on. The implementation of the recycle program, that's how we started that for the hazardous waste. We did a lot of recycling, had a very big reduction in their waste. And over time, we proved that, and we're able to change that. This is just a couple of the things that we implemented. One of them, it was kind of funny or strange that we're right after the recycling panel here. You know, some of the stuff that they had never looked at that we came in and did. Working in Bay Springs, as they were talking about, our recycling, we do have some. It's very limited. And the reason it's limited, we're very rural and we have to do a lot of collection. We'd have a lot of transport to send stuff a long way in order to recycle it. It becomes very expensive, so recycling doesn't become very marketable, I guess you could say, to the management. But being in a bigger market in the Gulfport area, all of a sudden we were able to find out there were some other availabilities out there that we could utilize. And one of the first things we did is we started recycling cardboard. It's not the same way that you normally would see it, where we stack it and we pound it and everything like that. However, what we were able to do is reduce our waste dollar amount, if you will. You know, where I still have to pay for it to be delivered, but it's not quite as much now. So we were actually able to send it to a recycler and reduce that cost a little bit. And a couple other things we have there, being a welding shop, they have reused brass nozzles and tips and so forth, so on, where they were just going into scrap steel, not segregating it. All of a sudden, we started implementing and say, hey, you want a new brass tip or nozzle? Bring me the old one, we'll give you a new one, dump it in the bucket. All of a sudden, we have a separate waste stream that has generated an income from scrap, if you will, and it's brass and copper pays a little bit different than regular ferrous steel. So we were able to implement that. And one of the other things that we looked at is we worked with our suppliers, or vendors, I guess you can say, or however, and we wire trucks as well. So there was a lot of what we call trimmings, or wires that come out. They got to trim it off a little bit, put it back in there. Well, normally everybody wants copper wire. They want it stripped. They don't want any insulation on it, and they'll pay good money for that. However, we didn't have that capabilities. How am I going to take a 1-inch piece of brass wire or copper wiring and strip it off? I don't really have that. However, worked out, and they found us. We worked together. We were able to recycle our trimmings with our scrap dealers. So now we can take that, and it's not near as what they call number 2 copper, I believe it is. But we were able to work on something, and they could do that. So instead of sweeping it up and throwing it in the trash, we now put it in a bucket, and we're able to recycle it. So all that sounds great and wonderful. We failed. Why did we fail? Well, there's several reasons of that, but one of the big things was they were growing. Things were changing, and as everybody that works with people knows, that change, everybody accepts it right off, right? Yeah. Well, that was part of the problem. It wasn't that the management wasn't behind it. It wasn't that the middle management wasn't behind it. There wasn't really the middle management there. There really wasn't the people who say, well, these are new people. They're coming in here trying to force us down our throats. We don't want to do it. So we didn't sell it well enough. But failure is not always a bad thing. You know, as some of y'all may have experienced, if you fail one time, you want to do what? No, I'm going to get this. So what did we do? We're never going to give up. We're going to keep trying. So back in 2015, we said, no, we're not going to accept this. We failed one time. This is not going to happen. We're going to make sure that it's working right this time. And about that time, we decided, not we, us, the company as well as everything else, we changed some things. There were some management changes and so forth. I'm going to kind of let Lance talk about them briefly here in just a minute. But we rededicated ourselves and said, no, something's got to happen. We're going to get this, and we want to do that. Now, one of the other things is I'm coming in looking at it from a leadership standpoint, and a leader enHance member, and boy, I'd love to be there. But also, we kind of had to back up and say, wait a minute. And we didn't apply for leader. We applied for the associate level, but we needed to downgrade it, look at that level. So there was a lot of things that we did, and again, that commitment was there. So again, Plant 3, Homac Plant 3 and Keith Huber, we recommitted to succeed. We started a lot of things. About that time, Lance became a team leader. He came into the company, so he wasn't there during all the other stuff at first, but he did come in, and he almost immediately got thrown into a bunch of the stuff that we had to do. So I am going to turn it over briefly to him, let him talk about a couple of the other things, the things that we did do and how it kind of implemented to the success in 2016. that one goes forward.
Is anybody here? You're good? I got thrown into this. I'm not a public speaker, so please bear with me if I mess up. But my name is Lance Starner. I am a team leader at Keith Huber Corporation. I came in January of 2015, so kind of right when all this was getting restarted and trying to redo this again. The change in management structure I was a part of, along with 2 other team leaders that were brought to Huber. We were all put over our separate areas in the shop. I was put over the tanks area, and then thrown into the safety and environmental committee. And in that process, we had to appoint an environmental champion who was Will McMillan, who was supposed to be here, but unfortunately he was not able to make it today. And then in the middle of the environmental committee, we had to come up with a way to reevaluate and implement some of our new systems. And as Keith done mentioned, a big part of that was our waste streams, getting down to our copper, our cardboard, our plastics, and all that we had. So separating it, make sure it goes to the proper bins and whatnot. So a lot of that involved a lot of training with us, the team leaders, in which return we're continually training our team members, our guys we're over. So it's always a daily, weekly, I don't want to say struggle, but sometimes it is that way. Some of the more changes we took a step back as a plant and decided, since us team leaders were kind of implemented there, upper management kind of not really let it fall on our shoulders, but more of our responsibilities was to take each department that we were over and dissect it and figure out which ways in our own areas that we could benefit the environmental committee and our waste streams and other areas. The implemented more complete management structure. We hired a few more team leaders, and plus people that was already intercompany. They were just shifted around to different positions to try and utilize the most of everybody's talents and their benefits. We established and maintained continuing environmental committee meetings before kind of really 2015, and really all the team leaders and group leaders were established. The environmental committee didn't really have any continual meetings, but that's something we've really strived for since then, was to have weekly or bi-weekly meetings, depending on production schedule, of course. And in the meetings, we always discuss, is there any new, what's new, what's ways, how's the waste streams going in your areas? So it's always real informative when we go to those. And of course, utilizing Holmack's mentorship. A lot of this information we get is coming from Keith and Plant 3 and Holmack itself, because they've been through it. So it's kind of like a big brother, big sister kind of mentoring you along the way. So it's been a tremendous amount of help. The projects we had for 2015 were our flux recycling project and our stormwater hydro capture, and kind of talk a little bit about those. The flux recycling kind of affected my area more than anybody else, because it says extra submerged arc flux would be disposed due to contamination. On our pressure vessels, our tanks, we have to put a submerged arc weld on the outside of the seams around the tanks to get 100% penetration. And if you don't know a whole lot about submerged arc weld, the flux is really sandy, really grainy. You gotta, you buy it from an outsource. And the way we were purchasing it was just through our local gas and supply store in 50-pound bags. And there'll be a chart here in a little bit. I'll probably go ahead and show you that. That was our use in pounds of how many bags we were buying. This is almost weekly, 2 weeks. We're buying 3 to 4 of these 50-pound bags. And in a year, we're using over 2,000 pounds of flux, because there really was no way to capture when the flux is being used, rolling off the back of this unit, and it's falling onto the ground. So there really was no way to capture this extra flux being used. So it's just getting contaminated with dust and welding wire and any other contaminants that's in the ground, and it's going into the waste bin, when in return getting put outside and taken to the landfill. So how could we eliminate this? Well, we got on the phone with Keith and Holmack and Plant 3 and kind of discovered that they were doing this recycling flux project in their plants. And what it is it does save us money, so it is cheaper in a company-wise. But it doesn't go to no more waste fields. It isn't going to the landfill. You're not putting it in your waste bins. What's happening is we're shipped a 1,600-pound bag of flux, and it comes in, and the box on the right is what the flux bag comes in, and we just transfer it to our homemade box, And we also developed these catch pans that when the extra flux is falling off the tank, it's falling into the catch pan, so we can reuse the flux that's not being used until it's ultimately all used up. And then we put all the used flux into the original container. It came in, we ship it off, get another bag of 1,600-pound flux. So it saved us a tremendous amount of money, because as of December 1st, 2015, we haven't bought a single bag of that 50-pound flux from our gas and supply. We've no longer put any in our waste stream, so it's been a tremendous environmental help, and it's saving us money. So without Holmac having already that project implemented, I don't even know if we would ever discovered it. Our stormwater recycling, this was a pretty cool project, I would say. What the process is we have a storage tank out back filled with just water, because each one of our pressure vessel codes, we have to hydro pressure test at the end of when it's built. So we just pump it up full of water, pressure it up, and then at the end, the water is put back in our storage tank. Well, we were filling this tank when we needed to fill the tank water. We were filling it with just normal city water, filling it up. Well, the problem was we had no way to capture the city water once the tank overflowed and it's spilling out onto the ground. So how could we not make the city water get on the ground is basically what we had to do. So kind of had to think outside the box. Environmental committee got together, Keith come down, a couple of Plant 3 guys, and so we're looking at the storage tank, trying to figure out how can we keep from just the water, from using city water ultimately. So a stormwater position was proposed, and it turned out to be really simple and efficient. So what it is was, I'll show you the picture, you can get more of a representation. We ran a pipe from our drain gutters down to, and we added a shutoff dome into our storage tank there. So when the storm comes, the rain's catching, it's filling up our tank. And the shutoff dome, there's a seal ball in there. It'll seal when the tank gets full, so then it's just raining then. So you're no longer using city water. And that's worked out a tremendous great bit. If it doesn't rain and your tank does need filling up, we've added another, you can't see it through the pictures, it's on the left side of the tank. We added just a simple pipe with a hose, and we can fill it up with city water, but if it does overflow, now it's running in through the hose into the city sewer. So if we do have to fill it up with city water, which we try not to, it will run into the sewer now and no longer on the ground. So it's really worked tremendously well. And in conclusion, what I have to say about it is our mentorship with Holmac and Plant 3, tremendous amount of help. A lot of the ideas that they have and our guys have really connect, and it's benefited overall. So, Keith.
I'll just mention a couple more things about the mentorship drives. Well, it did a couple of things. It drove Holmac as well as Keith Cooper. All of a sudden, we've got to start thinking about how to do other companies, how to help other companies. Why? Because we help other companies, and they do what? They help us. Again, back to the success in sustainable manufacturing. We want to work together with our vendors and our suppliers, so that if they're environmentally friendly, if we're trying to be environmentally friendly, it's a win-win situation. About the assisting back and forth, I've got to give a shout out to MDEQ and the relationship with Kerry and Mr. Chris, and working with that team with the enHance, as well as coming to some of these events and just the networking, not only with other people that are in manufacturing business. We're a small business. I hear a lot of this from, I say a small business, that's all relative, but I don't have 22,000 employees. We have, just depending, about 100 per plant, just back and forth. So we have to think of ways to doing stuff. But that relationship helps us out. I've heard a couple things already today. I've jotted a note or two. Hey, I got to get a phone number from that guy. I've been asking for questions and so forth. But that relationship, I pick up the phone, call the DEQ. Hey, I've got a question. What about this? What about that? The saving. We've already kind of mentioned it. I know that the enHance program is not about money. It's about being environmentally friendly. It's about saving the units, but the units saves business, because without the savings of the money, we can't do some of these projects. I've seen a couple of them payback times. Everybody wants it to be paid real quickly. That's business. It's the way to go. I encourage you, I know we've talked about this in some of our steering committees about, from the enHance steering committee meetings. You know, I think it's something that some of these companies would be great to be able to get out to do. And I encourage, if you know of any other companies or if there's any companies not in the program, find someone that'll help you mentor, because there is a lot of learning curve. As you saw, we had a learning curve, which was actually a very successful thing, I think, to us. With that said, that's pretty much what we had. Any questions or something I might can field? I don't know if I'm on time, ahead of time, or behind time.
Any questions for Keith and Lance? Yes.
My name is John Reaver with Toyota. I'm wondering what do they do with the flux to recycle? How do they process it?
We work with another company, and they basically take it, I'm gonna call it filter it, you know, and take this flux when it, I guess you can call it melts, for a lack of better terms. They'll take all of that and they process it through their, I'm gonna say scrap, I'm not really sure how they process that part, but they send us back the parts that's not contaminated with all the dust and stuff. They have capabilities to do that.
Yes. Rosario?
Yeah, how big is your tank for stormwater collection, and where is the process that you actually recycle?
The question was how large is the tank and where does it go to when it's recycled?
Well, it just works back and forth. We just use it for the same tanks. The only losses that we would have would be something from residual, like in the hoses, and that would go to the stormwater. The tank is 6,300 gallons, I believe, and our tanks that we build range anywhere from 3,000 to 4,000 gallons. So, you know, just whatever residual is what we're recollecting. And we just use, if we have 3 tanks, you know, we test one tank, collect water, test the other tank. It's just a back and forth use. It's not really processed to do anything. All we're doing is filling up the tank so we can pressurize it with hydro instead of with air.
Let's give them a hand. Always a good way to start out. We're very pleased here today to have Tim Johnson from Toyota Engineering and Manufacturing. He's from corporate headquarters. Tim is a manager of environmental engineering for TEMA. He's worked with Toyota's environmental engineering section for over 25 years. His degree is in environmental science. He began his career at the Georgetown, Kentucky assembly plant and worked there before moving on to the Toyota North America corporate offices. As a manager of environmental engineering, he's responsible for overseeing all of Toyota North America's manufacturing plants, help them to achieve and maintain ISO 14001 certification. His role also includes managing North American manufacturing environmental performance target cutting and monitoring. This target setting and monitoring role includes energy consumption and the new 2050 environmental challenge aimed at zero CO2 emissions. Tim Johnson.
I'm okay to use this mic.
Sure.
It's okay. Good morning, everybody. So I've been put in a very powerful position. I'm between you and lunch, right? I'll try not to go over my time. How many of you, I've heard a lot about 14001 today. How many of you have formal environmental management systems, 14001 certified systems? More than 50%? How many of you have already gone through your upgrade to the new 2015 standard? Have any of you done that yet? We've got one? Okay, all right. My presentation today is going to focus on those change points. So it sounds like this may be very interesting to many of you who will be going through what we call an upgrade audit. So I'll focus on those change points, and don't hesitate to ask questions along the way. And you said it's the right side, right?
Yeah, right.
Got it. Okay. So just real quick about Toyota in North America. We have 14 manufacturing plants in North America. Some are assembly, some are casting, some are what we call unit plants or powertrain facilities. All of our facilities are certified to 14001. Yeah, our creditor is DNV, Detnorsky Veritas. They're out of Houston. Some of you may use them or have heard of them before. And all our plants have been certified. Mississippi, our plant in Tupelo, is our latest certification. I'm not sure the year, Rosario. You'll have to, 2012, they were certified. And my role in Toyota is actually to help all the plants, and I was involved since 1996. I know I'm a very old man at this point. 1996, getting our first plant in Vancouver, British Columbia, captain certified, and I've been involved with all the certifications for all the NEMCs. And with like most things with Toyota, we take the last one, the last certification, or what we learned at the last plant, and we try to improve it to make it easier and better for the next plant. So Mississippi was the benefactor of all of the experience and all of the all of the good things that all the other plants had done in North America. So, and I appreciate being here today. This is going to be a good presentation, I promise you. So let's talk about the standard. And one thing, for those of you who aren't familiar with environmental management systems, I liken an environmental management system to a cookbook, all right? So many of you maybe have parents, your mom, grandma, who just has this phenomenal dish that you just love, right? And she may or he may have not done a great job of writing down this recipe, and at some point in time they may pass away, and you're trying to recreate this wonderful dish that you had as a child, right? So what a system does for you is it formalizes that recipe so that you can at someday experience that wonderful dish, right, when it's gone. So it documents and formalizes the methodology to achieve the result. In this case, with the cookbook, you're trying to achieve that wonderful dessert or that wonderful dish, whatever it is. So that's when I do a lot of training, I try to help people understand that the management system is just the process. It's just the method to achieve the result that you're trying to achieve. And that result could be greater environmental performance in terms of lower energy or water usage or whatever. It could be in the compliance realm. It could be reducing your risk, improving your compliance. All those things are what I would call result-oriented items. But using the automotive slang, the EMS is the engine, if you will, that gets you to results. So the standard, it's changed twice since 1996. As I've been involved with the standard since 1996. And the first time was in 2004. It was a very minor change. In 2015, this is a more substantial change, and we're going to go through some of those substantial changes here in just a moment. Again, our role as TEMA is Toyota Motor Engineering and Manufacturing. We're located, I'm located in Lexington, Kentucky, so still part of the Southeastern Conference officially, right? Kentucky's just right here, still part of it, still there. But we're assisting all the plants with the change points and helping and make sure that all of our upgrade audits are successful. So we will be down here in Mississippi when it comes their turn to go through the change. And for those of you who don't know, September 2018, if you had a currently certified system when they made the change in September 2015, you've got 3 years to do your upgrade audit. That was the amount of time that you were given. So September 2018 is your D-Day. So a little history here on the change point. So there was a mandate in 2011 that said, hey, the 2004 standard is getting some age on it. We need to change this standard, but we want to make sure we follow what's called a high-level structure. And the reason they wanted to make sure they did that was so that it would, the quality, the 9000 standard, the new safety standards that are coming out, all these various standards would have the same high-level structure and language structure so that someone can do an audit, they can come into your facility and they can do a safety, quality, environmental audit and be very familiar with most of the terminology and the system and the way the system is structured. So that was a big part of the change points. Also had to consider future challenges and, like I said, common text in all the management standards, whether you're talking about 9001, 45001, etc. In some cases, some of the language didn't line up real well for environmental. If any of you have read the new standard, some of it's kind of the language not so great, but we have to overcome that, right? As our last presenter said, we have to overcome, we won't give up. Must ensure the maintenance and the improvement of the basic principles of 14001. So one of the big things that they wanted to be sure was to do a better job of having your system integrated into your normal business practices, everyday type stuff. And then we always tell our plants, if the management system is a special thing, it's sitting on a shelf by itself, and you pull it off the shelf when the audit occurs, then your system truly isn't integrated into your normal business practices. And that's really some of the changes that were made here were to focus or have plants, if by proxy, make them integrate some of those things into their normal business practices. So who wrote the standard? I don't know if any of you are involved in that process at all. We are at Toyota. We actually are on the Technical Advisory Committee, the TC 207. And you have all types of members that are involved in writing the standard: certification bodies, accreditation bodies, industry, academia, and consultants. So when the standard was being revised, the United States had 2 representatives that were allowed to go to the meetings internationally. We were fortunate enough to have one of our team members. Her name is Sheena Donald. She actually was one of the representatives to the United States to help rewrite the standard. So she went to all the various international meetings. The other person was from the Rochester Institute of Technology. So the 2 of them tag teamed, and they went all across the country arguing with the Europeans and the South Americans and everyone arguing about how the standard should be written and what's important. So yeah, we demonstrated a lot of leadership in the United States during that revision process. I guess, in a way, you could kind of blame us, too, for some of the stuff that might be in there. But here are the meetings. I'm going to fast forward through them. These are just some photos. Sheena's in some of these photos with the meetings. This is a typical meeting. This is what happens. They all have, it's kind of like United Nations kind of thing. They all have their headphones on, and they're all, asking questions or trying to confirm understanding and write the standard. So I'm going to plow past this about as fast as I can. As you can see, it was very intensive. Whoop, a little too far. Okay. All right. So now mapping the changes. So many of you are familiar with the 2004 standard. It's sitting there on the left-hand side. 17 current clauses, right? Some of you may say column sections or whatever. The new standard has 35 clauses in it. And if any of you are familiar with Louisville, Kentucky, there's an area that we call Spaghetti Junction. It's where 64, 65, and I-71 all come together. That's what we have here, is Spaghetti Junction. What they've done is they've just moved lots of portions of the standard around. They've also taken a lot of pieces or parts of the standard and they busted them up into smaller pieces. So that's why you end up with really 35 clauses. But this is a completely new document, but many of the same core requirements are in the standard. This gives you a real quick view of all the new sections of the standard. The 2004 version, you could kind of say there were 5 sections. 4.2 policy, the 4.3 the planning, 4.4 implementation and operation, 4.5 was the checking and corrective action, and 4.6 management review. 5. Here we have 10. And they've just moved some things around. And the black font here are the core management system requirements. The red is really the new stuff. Okay, that's the new management system requirements. And blue is some ISO 14001 specific, discipline specific. It's also new or has some new pieces in it. So what changed? So what I'm going to do is we're going to plow through this as fast as we can. I know, again, I'm in a position of power, so you got to wait for me. Sorry. Sections 1 through 3, really no significant change in the scope portion. Nothing that was really significant or meaningful. Normative reference section, really no changes whatsoever. Terms and definitions, there were lots of changes. So the draft international standard, it was organized, or the 2004, by how they appear, or sorry, the new standard is how they appear in the standard. That's the order that they're in. The old standard was, 2004 was alphabetical. If you go to the 2004 version of the standard and you look at the definition section, it'll be alphabetical. So there are 33 definitions in this new, and there are 20 in the 2004. So they've added a few definitions. And the appendix at the end provides you an alphabetical list. If you're, have to have it in alphabetical order, you can find it there. So section 3, this is an example of terminology changes: procedure versus process. So for those of you who are, love your word procedure, in some sections procedure was removed, and they used, they're using the words process quite a bit. You'll also see that, does not need to be documented unless documented information is required within the clause. So they did a little bit more clarification of where they want you to have documentation and where they don't. Process is not a specified way and does not indicate a procedure. It's not telling you exactly what you have to have. It just talks more generically that you must have a process of some type. This is a new piece. Context of the organization. So what you're trying to do here is understand what impact your company or your organization has on the overall environment, and also what impacts did the environment have on your organization. For some of us in Toyota, we have some areas that we're in water distressed areas. Our Baja plant, our Texas plant, our California plant. So one of the things that we would surely want to consider in understanding the context in which we are operating is we're in a water scarce area. We need to be sure that we're looking at that in terms of water reductions and doing those types of things, kaizening our processes for water reductions, just as an example. Also 4.2, understanding the needs and expectations of interested parties. Interested parties were always in the 2004 version, but now they're really wanting you to hammer home and understand and physically show how you determined what the needs and expectations of interested parties were to your system. And it's affecting, and then 4.3, the scope, and 4.4, really some new language, but basically same current requirements. Nothing too spectacular there. So understanding the needs and expectations of interested parties. Who are some of these interested parties? You can see here for us, you have non-government organizations. You have, I put MDEQ in there. We did have EPA in there, federal, but Rosario said, no, you should put MDEQ in there. You all are an interested party, right? So there are lots of different interested parties, but you decide as an organization which ones that you will adopt. Once you adopt these, they become, the terminology is compliance obligations. The term legal and other requirements is now gone in the 14001 standard. Now the term is compliance obligations, okay? I know, it kind of means the same thing, almost, but a little different. So you can see here, we've put in the ones that, that we're going to adopt, if you will, and the ones that we're not. So leadership, this is a big change point. This is another area where the writers of the standard really wanted to make some impact, and they wanted to make sure that they expanded the expectations and requirements of top management. Again, I think as they were writing the standard, they felt that, and there were many individuals who may have said some bad things about 14001. It's not effective. It's not getting what we want out of it. By driving home through top management, as we all know, what your boss believes is important is going to be important to you, right, John? So they're really hitting home on leadership and commitment, and what are the expectations of top management with the 14001 system. So I just summarize, they're in the standard in this section. There's 9 expectations. 4, top management shall ensure. Top management shall support, top management shall communicate, top management shall promote, top management shall take accountability. And so what's going to be very interesting is how you as an organization, how do you show that? How do you show the objective evidence to the auditor when they come to audit you that your top management is doing that? So something you need to think about. 5.2 environmental policy, really nothing new, but there is a new term or some new terminology. You now have to have in your policy protection of the environment. We've actually, I think all of our plants have had to make this change to our environmental policies. It's a slight change, but nonetheless, the language is the language. All of our environmental policies now say they will have to support and protect the environment. Roles and responsibilities and authorities, they no longer have the title of management rep. You won't see that in the new standard. It doesn't exist. We as Toyota have kept that title in all of our systems. We're not changing that. But Toyota, we also have what's called an environmental director. So we have a management rep, typically a manager level, could be assistant manager level, but we also have what we call an environmental director. That has to be an executive. And in our case, John Raymer is the environmental director at the Tupelo plant. So, and it has to be a general manager or vice president type level. And they both have their own functions within our system, but they removed this requirement. Also removed the requirement to document roles and responsibilities, which was kind of a surprise to me, but there's no longer the need to document the roles and responsibilities. How am I doing on time? Okay, 7 minutes, okay. Section 6, planning. So this is also a real new piece here. The facility has to take actions to address risks and opportunities. And you've got to address the risks and opportunities to assure that your environmental management system is going to achieve the desired outcomes. Now, for us at Toyota, we have 3 priorities for the environment. Every training class that I do, I beat those 3 priorities into everyone's head, and by the time they're finished with our auditing class, they should have them memorized. 0 violations, 0 complaints. Number 1, environmental performance in our region and in the world. Reduce our long-term liability due to ground and soil contamination. So we have this little triangle that we use, and then in the middle we use the EMS, again, as the engine to drive all these results. So that's what we're trying to achieve at Toyota, right? And so the EMS is supposed to be designed to help us achieve those 3 outcomes, all right? So you also have to address risks and opportunities to achieve continual improvement and prevent undesired effects, okay? You have to maintain documented information on these risks and opportunities. So you've got to be able to demonstrate and show how you have addressed risks and opportunities. So the first thing you need to do is identify what they are, and you'll need to be able to show that. Then determine potential emergency situations in section 8.2, including those with environmental impact, all right? 6.1.2, environmental aspects. For those of you with certified systems, you know very well about the aspects section and element. Very similar. But you should be clarifying abnormal and emergency situations. These have to be taken into account. And you have to communicate your significant aspects to relevant functions and levels within the organization. 6.1.3, compliance obligations. Again, that's a new term. It's replaced legal and other requirements. Really no new expectations there. But your terminology has changed. Planning action. This is one of those areas of the standard where, because of the common language, the high-level text structure, this came into play. It really doesn't do anything, honestly. There's not much value into it, but it's really just saying that it's a reference section stating that you have to do what you have to do. I think on the quality side, they must have, and I'm not a 9000 expert, but maybe on the 9000 side of the house, they use this type of planning action piece quite a bit. I don't know. 6.2, environmental objectives and planning how to achieve them. So yeah, you also now have to consider risks and opportunities when you're establishing your objectives and targets. And you've got to communicate those objectives. So new pieces. Planning actions to achieve them. This is your formal environmental management programs. So there's some slight change. You've got to determine the resources that are now required and how the results will be evaluated, and consider how actions to achieve can be integrated into, again, those business processes. Shouldn't be a special system, totally part of your day-to-day activities. 7.1, now we're going to the support area, okay, in the section 7. For resources, roles, and responsibilities was how it used to be written, or structure and resources. Same as 2004 version, but 5.3, see, 5.3 for organizational roles, responsibilities, and authorities. Now we're starting to move in the training area. Competence. So they did split up competence and awareness. They in the current 2004, the old version, training, awareness, and competency was one element. Now they've kind of busted them out. I think just to add emphasis to the competence piece. And especially those individuals at your facilities that can affect performance, environmental performance, energy, water, waste, VOCs in our world, or compliance. Those are going to be critical in terms of making sure that they're competent. And awareness, slight wording change, to add to ensure versus just having a procedure to make folks aware. You need now to ensure that there is awareness. Communication, 7.4. There's internal and external. They did break the two are broken up still. There's this general section, this new section that specifies the organization must have a process for what, when, to whom, and how it will communicate. And internal is similar to 2004, but again, a slight change. Ensure the communication process is going to allow any person doing work under the organization's control to contribute to continual improvement. So now we got to think about this, whether we have contractors, folks that are working on our site, how can they, what avenue do we provide to them where they can contribute to our environmental EMS, to our environmental management systems? What have we put in place? And how can we show objective evidence that we've given that avenue to those folks? External, nothing really new, except emphasis on fulfilling your compliance obligations. So of course, interested parties might be neighbors, etc. If they become a compliance, if you're like we are, we're zero violations, zero complaints. That's one of our KPIs, our requirements. Then the neighbor is very important. Documented information. They merged EMS documentation and document control under one section. There's less prescription here in creating and updating documents. For control of documents, nothing too new. They removed the approved prior to issue piece in the 2004, and they also removed the prevent from unintended use. You now have to address distribution, access, and retrieval and use in the new version. They widely expanded to operational planning and control. Now you've got to address operation control in terms of compliance obligations, risks and opportunities, outsource processes, whether it may be a contractor or supplier. Some of those may be within scope. And this big piece here is added life cycle consideration in the standard. How do you consider life cycle when you're developing your operation controls and in your environmental management system? So one of the things that we did as TEMA is we worked with all of our plants. These are just some example templates that we work together. So you can see this is our little, we got this little flower up here. We show the life cycle, if you will, of a vehicle from design through manufacturing, through sales and final. What we'll have our plants do is, show very clearly what are the portions of the life cycle that they have influence and control over. And those will be the pieces that are addressed in their EMS. But we certainly consider life cycle in terms of our management systems. On the left-hand side, this is just a way in which we've identified compliance obligations and risks and opportunities. And then on the right, understanding the organization and its context. So you see our little triangle I talked about with the EMS in the middle. Those are our outcomes. So what do we have, or what are we trying to do in terms of internal, external parties, et cetera, to make sure that we are meeting these outcomes? Emergency preparedness and response, 8.2. This moved around. They moved the 2004 requirement to identify potential emergency situations to section 6.1.1. So they kind of busted up emergency response from the 2004 version. Placed a communication and or training requirement into the new revision. And you now have to review your ERP after your tests, not just actual accidents. Section 9, monitoring, measuring, analysis. There's some relevant differences. They now have a term, environmental performance, in the monitoring section. They added a new term, indicators. What are the indicators for knowing whether you're monitoring or whether you're achieving your performance obligations or compliance obligations? What are you using to know whether you're achieving what you're trying to achieve? Defined as performance related to the management of environmental aspects. Remove the term key characteristics. Now there's a requirement to evaluate the effectiveness. Again, I said the authors of the standard were really hitting hard on making systems more effective. So they want you to evaluate the effectiveness of your management systems. Add an internal and external communication expectation as well in here. Evaluation of compliance. Basically the same as the 2004 version, but you have to determine now the frequency of your evaluations. Have to take action after a compliance audit is completed. If there are any non-conformances or non-compliances that you find, you've got to take the necessary action. And maintain understanding knowledge of your compliance status. I'm almost done. I'm getting right to the end. Internal audit, 9.2. It's nearly, again, the same as 04 version, but you've got to consider changes that are affecting the organization as well in your internal audit when you're planning the audit. In management review, they added a lot of additional items that have to be covered during that management review meeting. At Toyota, we call them environmental steering committee meetings or management steering committee meetings, MSCs, ESCs. But all these various things should be part of your environmental steering committee process. At Toyota, our enhanced EMS requires 10 steering committee meetings a year. The standard does not tell you how often you have to have your management review meetings, but as part of our enhanced, we require 10 a year. We give the plants a break, if you will, because July and December are shutdown months where they typically are off for a week. It's hard to get everyone together. It's kind of chaotic during those months. So they have to have 10 a year. Improvement. Yeah, this is a brand-new section. Generally, it's new but harmless. It just puts a lot of emphasis on what are determining your opportunities for improvement. Corrective action, much better structure, order, and the wording than the 2004 version. I wasn't a fan of the 2004 version on how they did the corrective action. They removed this crystal ball, what I call requirement. I don't know if any of you have dealt with this, but there was a section in the 2004 version that said you should be basically understanding the nonconformances that are potential and implementing countermeasures to avoid them. Okay? So better language. Added the expectation to now Yokoten the issue to prevent recurrence. That was where Toyota came into play, or Shina. That's our term, Yokoten. Any of you know that term, Yokoten, what that means? I know John does. Yokoten? It has several different meanings. In Japan, for us, two different meanings. One is that you take a great idea or a great concept or a great methodology and you copycat, all right? It's a Japanese word for plagiarism. So you take that idea so that you make it easier for the next facility. We're really good at that. And the other way that which we use it is if one of our plants has a problem, maybe they have a spill, a large spill, or they do something that's probably not the best from a compliance perspective. We share that information North American wide to prevent the next plant from having that same problem. So the two ways in which you can share or Yokoten to get improvement. Continual improvement, this is a new section for added emphasis and for improving the suitability, adequacy, and effectiveness of the EMS. More terminology changes. You'll see taking into account versus consider. If it's consider, you can think about it, but you can reject it. You don't have to do it. But if it says take into account, you not only have to think about it, but you can't reject the issue. You got to do something. All right? Yeah. I took into account fuel economy when I bought my vehicle. I considered fuel economy when I bought my vehicle. They considered it, but they said, I'm not going to do anything about it. We have the compliance obligations, replaces legal and other. So you've got requirements that don't necessarily equal your compliance obligations unless you choose to adopt it. Again, lots of changes, lots of terminology changes in the standard. We tell our NEMCs, you got to go through it and read it. I mean, bottom line is you've got to become familiar with it. I've given you maybe the 10,000 foot, 5,000 foot level of some of the changes, but you really need to go through it. So what's next? They finalized it, of course, in 2015. Again, you have 3 years to upgrade your systems to come into conformance with the new standard. Next week will be our first plant in North America. Our Georgetown plant, our Camry plant in Georgetown, Kentucky, will go through their upgrade audit, and they'll be the first plant in North America. So if this was just a little bit later, I could have some really cool information for you. But I think we're prepared for that audit. But that'll be our first plant in North America, and then the other 13 will follow, and we'll get them all finished. Essentially, I think by April of 2018, if I'm not mistaken, some of that time frame, our 14 plants will all be finished. That's it.
We're running just a little bit late. Time for one question for Tim?
No?
Everybody's hungry.
Yeah, they're hungry.
You only used your power for good.
Thank you.
Okay, that concludes our program for this morning. We're going to move next door, I think it is, for lunch, where we'll have the awards presentation for the new members and returning members and comments from Executive Director Rickard. So thank you very much, and please move next door for lunch as quickly as you can.
Go ahead and finish up your meals or dessert or wherever you are in the process. We'll go ahead and start our program. We have our special speaker today is J.D. Hardy from Mississippi State. He's the Associate Director of Engineering Services in the Office of Planning, Design, and Construction Administration there at MSU. He's also chairman of the IHL System Energy Management Council. In the role at State, he serves as the energy monitor for the campus, and in addition to, he develops reports on consumption for the Energy Committee. He's part of a team that develops projects to improve campus systems and make them more efficient. Since 2008, JD has been part of a successful sustainability and energy conservation campaign there at MSU, It's yielded a 37% reduction in energy intensity over those 6 years, resulting in over $21 million in avoided energy costs. He's originally from Columbus. He earned his undergraduate and Master's of Science degrees in mechanical engineering from MSU. JD, thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate the opportunity to speak today. I always appreciate the opportunity to represent MSU and to represent the IHL, Institutions of Higher Learning. I wear a couple of hats in that area, but I do work at Mississippi State. I know y'all are jealous. And I started out after I finished at MSU, I went to work in the oil and gas industry, and I really enjoyed that. Got to see some neat technology, got to spend some time offshore, spend some time in the production facilities. And like I said, I really enjoyed that. And when we decided to move back to Mississippi State, it was moving back near home to the family farm. It's kind of hard to get away from that. The land makes an imprint on you. And but when I moved back, I sort of felt like I kind of had been a traitor, because when I was with oil and gas, it was about every drop as fast as you can. We were all united around that theme of get as much out of the ground as quickly as you can, because that was the unified bottom line. And when I came to MSU in my role as energy manager, it was all about using as few drops as possible. So it was a little bit on the back end of things, but what I found was there's really a lot of synergies. I kind of expected to come out of the world of technology, and when I went into, I'll call it the building sector, out of the oil and gas industry into more of the building sector, I kind of expected there to be a technology drop, kind of confessing my thoughts at the time, and that I came out of the world that was heavy in control systems and SCADA and DCS and those types of technologies, and I expected to come into a world of, low tech. But what I found is not the case. What is the case is in our buildings today, we don't build even a 2,000 square foot building nowadays without it having actually a programmable logic controller in it, and about every piece of equipment in it is reporting back information, and you're setting sequences and all of that type of thing. Not to put anyone to sleep talking about that, but I was pleasantly surprised that we actually utilize a lot of technology. And in my mind, a lot of that comes from industry, from manufacturing, from the process industry. I feel like, in my perception, is that what I do every day, and what I deal with in the technology that we use there on campus at MSU, what other universities are using, is really kind of an offshoot of the demands that manufacturers and process industries have had to make a better product, to make it more efficiently. And so there is a lot of synergy there, both from saving energy and producing it as quickly as possible. So I would like to talk to you a little bit about, I can't promise that I'm not going to share some numbers, and apologize if lunchtime's not a great time to be talking about heavy numbers and percentages, but I'm very proud to represent MSU in terms of what we've done on efficiency. Normally when you're hearing about the universities, you're hearing about a baseball team, Go Dogs, and you're hearing about football or other athletic events. You may be hearing about our graduates and what they're doing, or possibly hearing about our research innovations. So we don't get to tell the story too often about what we're doing in operations. And so I'd like to talk a little bit about MSU and brag on what we're doing and give you a feel for the types of things that I learned happen to make that environment work. One little difference is that at the end of the day, when you're manufacturing, you've got a product, and like I said, the quality and the efficiency with which you manufacture it. And I've learned we do have a product also. It's called a full-time enrolled student, an FTE. And so we're trying to move as many of those through there as we can, and our success rate is about graduation. And we're not at 100% on that yet, but we'll keep working on it. So, but to make all of that happen behind the scenes, let me give you a few snapshots of some of the things that we deal with, and these may be impressive or not impressive. It's more just to give you a feel of the fabric of what's happening on our main campus, at least. Oh, there we go, wrong page. We have, and this is using data reported as of last fall, 21,622 enrolled students. Pretty good number. We have, now I'm going to make a caveat after this, we have a $1 billion operating annual budget. Only about 188 million of that is actually state appropriations. So you're talking about a lot of other funding sources that MSU is able to go out and harness in order to operate that engine up there. We have on our inventory about 9 million square feet. 7.5 of that roughly is in Starkville, is on the main campus. And we do operate, much to my chagrin, a lot of different assets, some of which are things like video boards, 2 of them at the football stadium, a new one at the baseball stadium. We have the arena at the Hump. So we have a lot of things that use energy, a lot of things that we have to keep going that maybe aren't typical of some facilities, and we just have to deal with those. We do operate a 7,000-ton, this is where I might put you to sleep, a 7,000-ton central plant. We have a lot of other tonnage on campus, but our central plant is about that size. We have miles and miles of underground piping. We pipe chilled water and heating water, wastewater, and clean water, domestic water. We operate a couple of elevated tanks and wells. We do have the control systems. We have 100,000 points that we're monitoring every portion of a second. So we have a lot of complexity up there, and one thing I've been getting texts on, is we operate a generation plant for campus. We actually can power campus if we need to. We operate really in an agreement with utility, so TVA has been dispatching us very regularly this week, and we just cranked it up at 11. So we have a couple of 13 megawatt solar natural gas turbines. They also run on diesel, but MDEQ does not like us to operate on diesel, so we pretty much always are operating on natural gas. It's much cleaner. And with the prices like they are, it actually means TVA calls us a lot. So what are we doing in terms of efficiency? And I want to give you a couple examples today just so you have a feel of things we're dealing with, and there may be some synergies with where all of you are coming from and what you're dealing with day in and day out. I recall when I came to MSU that we were in the middle of decommissioning a large steam plant. If you're ever on a campus and ride around, you'll see there's a large brick stack. It's not in operation anymore. We're not using it. We just want it to stay standing up is the main thing. But it was, that steam plant has a long history, that steam produced for and distributed across campus for heating purposes. It generated power at one point in its history. They actually made ice there, as I understand, at one point and would distribute it around campus in its history. And when I came to Mississippi State, we were actually decommissioning about, I think it was 60 or 80 million BTUs, it's so far back I don't recall, worth of steam boiler and putting in these high efficiency condensing smaller refrigerator sized boilers in an array. And I remember monitoring the natural gas consumption 2 years prior to bringing that system online and 2 years after, and it kind of leaves an imprint on me because I remember, wow, we are using 40% less natural gas just because of this conversion. And we really added load because we continue to add buildings to the loop, it seems like, every year. So those are the types of things we're doing. Now, I know a lot of you can't get rid of steam. You need them in your process and manufacturing facilities, but I say that to say the technology that is out there and is available is just always gives us opportunities. One other project that I would like to brag a little bit about, I was more intricately involved with, is I mentioned that the steam plant used to make ice. We're making ice there again. We have a thermal energy storage system. We are able to store about 11,000 ton hours of ice every night. So we make ice into tanks at night. If you're ever on campus and ride around, find the smokestack. Right over there and back behind it in the pit, is what it's called, I guess. It's a pit parking lot. You'll see the silver tanks, and that's where we're making ice at night so that we can shift some of our daytime load. And right now we can shift about 1 megawatt of load. If we fully build it out to where we plan, it'll be about 4 megawatts of load. So we're reacting in real time to the utility rates that are going on. And real proud of that system, and our operators love it. It gives us a lot of redundancy and flexibility. So anyway, what does all that mean? Well, we have done everything we could. Financially we do what we can, but we have been in a 10-year goal period. So from fiscal year 6, we just wrapped it up in fiscal year 16. So a 10-year goal to try to reduce our energy footprint, our energies per square foot on campus by 30%. And I'll share in a minute about the IHL. That was a system-wide goal for all the universities. And I'm very proud to say that as of fiscal year 16, so I'm going to correct a couple numbers that, sorry about that. Is that okay? I'm going to say it anyway. But where we were in fiscal year 16 is we're at 40% below where we were in fiscal year 6 in terms of energy use per square foot. And there's a myriad of things. I can't go into everything that it takes to do that. Some cost a lot, some don't cost a whole lot. But it's about making a focus on energy management, or focus on that being a priority. And when you total up what that means, and I always have to give my condolences to the gas and electric companies, but that would be about $42 million worth of utility dollars we would have spent that we otherwise have not. And so I'm very proud of that, and I think MSU doesn't get a chance to share that information very often. So, and it all goes back to, and I'll share in a second here, to me really a management decision. It goes back to saying this is a priority. So the IHL, Institutions of Higher Learning, let me give you a few statistics on the institutions of higher learning. 82,654 enrolled students as of fall of 2016. 34 million square feet. I believe, I don't have official numbers on this, but I believe we're somewhere over 50% of the state-owned buildings comprised by the IHL facilities. $4.5 billion annual operating budget, caveat. About $750 million of that is what was posted as of last year, was from state appropriations. So a lot of research dollars, a lot of grants, a lot of private funds, things like that. You may be familiar with the institutions of higher learning. Mississippi University for Women. I'm having to look down so I don't forget anybody. University of Southern Mississippi, Delta State, Alcorn, Mississippi Valley State, Jackson State, University Med Center, and MSU. And there's one more. There is University of Mississippi. And good folks at all of them. So I'd hate to leave them out because that's probably what would make the news. But really good folks at all of them. And we've all been tasked by the IHL to do this 30% reduction. And really where that came out of is back in the 2008-2009 period. Economy was tough, so state revenues are in danger, and of course agency funding in danger, and we go through those cycles. So the IHL board commissioned some task forces specifically to look for things that folks are doing at the universities that we could kind of share that information across the university. We could share that benefit, and one of the task force was energy. So we went and looked at all the universities and we put a report together, and when we shared that report forward, the IHL board took action on several things. One was to set a 10-year goal on everybody, 30% reduction over 10 years. Another was to appoint an IHL Energy Council, which I've been able to be involved with. And last, maybe this is something worth sharing, something to take from this. We did set in place, or the IHL board passed a sustainability policy. And sustainability I can speak to here when I close in just a second. But the policy had a number of things in it, and you can find it online at IHL's website. But there's a couple things I'd reference that really had some teeth to it. Sometimes we can put in some policy language that's very generic and says this is what we ought to be doing and not be very specific. But in this case, they were very specific on a couple of items. One is that when we build and construct new facilities, y'all may be familiar with the ASHRAE energy codes, ASHRAE 90.1. If not, it is the, hands down, the most widely accepted energy code when you build a facility, and it's state law for public institutions, public facilities, that they meet the 2010 version of the ASHRAE Energy Code. Now, how we utilize that is, and again, I'm sorry to get into the technicals, but I think it's worth mentioning how we utilize that is the IHL policy requires that you not only meet the minimum code requirements, but you have to do 30% better, exceed them by 30%. So that means when we're doing our Duty Noble Field renovation, right, that we're about to start. When we were designing that facility and the renovation for it, we had to build it and use the modeling software, which has become very sophisticated, to say how much energy per year will this renovation use if we build it to the ASHRAE minimums. And then we said we can do better than that. So we looked at some of the mechanical systems in the building, we looked at the insulation in the walls, we looked at how we were feeding hot and chilled water, we looked at how we were running the lights, and so on and so forth. And then we say, now let's model it. And the goal is to get 30% less energy per year. And we didn't quite make it on Duty Noble. It's a very challenging project, but I am proud to say we'll be at about 20 to 30% more efficient than the ash rate minimum on that facility. Now, on our classroom building that's about to finally come online, when we designed that and modeled it, it's very efficient. Even the windows in that facility will change tint throughout the day to try to block some of the solar heat gain. So they're actually computerized and controlled, and the orientation of the building, the windows in the building will tint independently of one another based on energy efficiency and letting in ambient light. But that building was designed at 35% better than the ash rate minimum. So we're doing what we can, and those are results, I say, of policy decisions. And the other policy decision I'd reference is we did put into place a revolving fund. Each university is supposed to take a minimum of 25% of the energy dollars saved from an energy project and put that into a fund to fund future initiatives. And that's what they've been doing. And so it had to start from a leadership perspective and from a policy decision. So enough of that. What does that mean? It means that our 10-year goal period for the IHL, so for all 34 million square feet, all 8 institutions, we didn't quite get to 30%. We got to 24%, and you can see it. It's a very clear downward trend over 10 years. And it's a 24% reduction, and it accounts for about $100 million in avoided utility costs. Now, that didn't have to happen. We could have said, this really isn't a priority. We've got plenty of other priorities. But it was made a priority. And so one of the things I would like to stress and leave with you is it wasn't necessarily because of a policy. It wasn't necessarily because of having an energy council, having JD on the energy council. It wasn't necessarily because of any boiler projects or anything like that we did. Really, the root starts back at leadership that makes it a priority. I know a lot of you already know this, but take it from the building sector and from the campus, trying to manage a campus. We see the same thing. When leadership makes it a priority and then empowers their folks to go and do something, there's the key, right? Provide the resources, free the time, you get good results. We didn't have to be able to, we weren't entitled to say that we were going to save $100 million, but we're able to say that now because decisions were made. So that's definitely a takeaway, I'd say, from our experience. Now, just kind of going a little off script, my personal view, and I'll close with this, is that we use the word sustainability a lot. We have a sustainability policy. I'm on a sustainability committee at MSU. I get to talk to a lot of students that want to be about sustainability, and about all of them have a different definition of sustainability, kind of like we were discussing. And I like to think of it as good stewardship. And so the way I define it is that we need to be about using the resources that we have today for our benefit. We need to use them to make our community, our families, or to make our community a better place for the benefit of our families, but we cannot do it without an eye to the future generations. And I think most of us here agree on that and know that. And so I think of what I teach my children to be good stewards is I want to make sure that when we do something, we consider others. What we sow, we're going to reap. So if we want to sow in good management practices and efficiency, and we want to consider those that have to inherit what we leave behind, it's going to make us make certain decisions. And when we don't do that and we get bound up with other things, then those decisions aren't made and we won't reap the results. So that's what I've experienced, and it does start really with leadership. So it starts with you guys, starts with me. I know my family's going to appreciate it if I can do my part. So I do appreciate the opportunity to share a little bit about what's going on campus at MSU, as well as a little bit what's going on with the IHL. We're trying to make it a better place. And anyway, but one thing I did leave out, moving forward, we do hope to see some better things. We hope to see more renewables come onto our campuses. There are more things that can be done, so we haven't stopped. I don't want to leave you with the message that we checked the box in fiscal year 16 and we walked away. We have asked each institution, and they've set a new 10-year goal. So we'll keep up the work, and we'll keep tracking, and hopefully we'll be back here at some point in the future to share with you what that looks like down the road. So thank you very much.
JD, we thank you very much for that, for your remarks, for coming here today. It is about leadership, as he mentioned, and our next speaker is our Executive Director, Gary Reichert, and he and his two predecessors have been very supportive of this program, and without their leadership, and his guidance, this program will not continue to flourish. So here we are at the 9th year. Gary has a few remarks, and then we'll have our award presentations.
Thank you, Robbie. I appreciate that. Thank you for being here today. I'd like to thank JD again for coming and addressing us. I think, as I was sitting there, I was trying to think, he picked on one of my alma maters a little bit, and I thought, well, I've got to get up and make a defense. And I was like, well, I can't talk about football. Can't talk about baseball either. And I was trying to, what can I do? Sanders, can we send 10 inspectors up to state on tomorrow, compliance inspectors? That's the only thing I can come up with. So I kid. As Robbie said, this is the 9th year. This is the 3rd year that I've been here as executive director, or the 3rd meeting, I should say. Staff tells me that we have 43 members now, and I think that's awesome. It started from, a very, very small core group and has grown since then. And I think that the enHance program is something that we all can be proud of. I think that we have done our best to keep it going, even when at the federal level funding was cut short and they had to cancel it. So, what you guys are doing is commendable. When I was a couple 3 or 4 years ago, when I was on the dark side, excuse me, my daughter and I are big Star Wars nerds. So, but when I was practicing environmental law, and I was representing corporations and companies and pretty much everybody. If there was ever a compliance action, one of the things that we came in and looked at, and we wanted to see, was there an opportunity to put in what was called then and now a supplemental environmental project. And I kind of got to thinking about, what is a SEP? A SEP is something that you put in because you're sitting across the table and you're in a compliance action, but it has to be above and beyond whatever the regulatory requirements are. And taking a step back and thinking about it, that's what you guys are doing, on your own voluntarily. It's not because you're being forced to do something or because you're trying to, minimize a penalty or anything like that. It's because you chose to be the good neighbor. You chose to go above and beyond what was required to be done, and to do all that to improve the quality of life of your employees and your neighbors. And so, again, I think that is really something that when you take a step back and look at the big picture, that's something that we all should try to emulate and do. And so, I'm proud to be a part of this group. I'm proud to be here to be able to speak to you and to hand out the awards momentarily, and would just like to tell you thank you again for what you're doing. The measures that you put in place have been rather impressive. I got the sheet the other day from staff that said that the results are somewhere around 12 tons of hazardous waste that were not sent to a landfill, a reduction of somewhere around 24,000 tons of solid waste. From a wastewater perspective, I think the number was 50 million gallons that were either reduced, reused, or recycled. The energy efficiencies that you put in place have resulted in, obviously, a reduction in air contaminants, but not only that, a savings of somewhere around $1.5 million. And so, that's the easiest way to conserve and be a conservationist and go above and beyond if you can show that it's actually saving money also. And so, the measures that you guys have come up with and put in place, what we hope to do is through programs just like you've had today is those best management practices to show others in the regulated community of what works, what you guys are implementing, so that maybe we'll see the implementation from other people to also get even more reductions and to protect human health and environment. So with that, I'll keep it short. I know it's lunchtime. I think we want to recognize the new class members, but before I do that, the new and renewing and the older members that are here, again, I'd like to say thank you. Appreciate you being here, appreciate you being a part of the program, and look forward to seeing you guys here in the future. So with that, Robbie, I think we can do the new members. Thank you.
Okay, we'll start with the leaders and then to the stewards and then the associates. Our first new member in the leader category is Advanced Distributor Products from Grenada. Advanced Distributor Products, they manufacture evaporator coils in Grenada. They're currently implementing a zero landfill project which will eliminate or divert over 1,000 tons per year of waste from landfills. Through better control of a water testing facility, ADP was able to save over 2.6 million gallons of water per year. They're also very active in their community with the Charged Up program. Our next leader is the Cooper Tire Company, the Tupelo plant. Cooper they're a renewing member. They produce passenger tires from its plant in Tupelo. They employ over 1,600 people. Through an energy management and waste management program, Cooper Tire is planning on reducing the amount of energy used per tire produced, as well as how much material is sent to landfill. This project has resulted in a 35% reduction of landfill. They also host a waste tire collection day for its surrounding community. Our next renewing member is Flex Steel. Flex Steel is a renewing member. They're located in Starkville. They just completed a solvent conversion project resulting in over 15 tons per year of VOC emissions and reducing 1.5 tons of hazardous air pollutants, and a recycling project diverting over 2.5 tons from landfills. They also serve as a mentor to Ability Works, which is a community rehab center providing vocational assessment and training to individuals with disabilities. Our next member is Nissan North America. Nissan North America produces automobiles and light-duty automobiles from its manufacturing facility in Canton. Through a filter replacement project, Nissan is saving over 6.5 million kilowatts per hour and over $300,000 per year. They've also implemented an LED lighting project, and that's saving them over $82,000 per year. Nissan has served as a mentor and partnered with the Rankin County School District, and 25 of their schools have been certified for the Energy Star program. Our next leader is Toyota Motor Manufacturing. Toyota in Blue Springs has implemented several water reduction projects resulting in savings of over 14.5 million gallons of water per year. They've also reduced the amount of wastewater sludge generated by 25.7 tons per year, while increasing production by just over 7%. They also sponsored a National Public Lands Day at Tom Bigby State Park, and they just received the Mississippi Recycling Coalition's Business and Industry Recycler of the Year Award. And our last leader is Tupelo Sleeper of Leggett and Platt. They're also renewing their membership. Tupelo Sleeper reduced its energy consumption by 52% through a lighting replacement project. They also implemented a loading dock air curtain project to reduce energy consumption and improve employee comfort. They've also been recognized by the Tupelo Parks and Recreation Department for its Adopt a Park project. Okay, onto the steward category. We have a renewing member at Cooper Tire Company for their Clarksdale plant. As we learned today in their presentation, they produce curing bladders there at that plant. They've reduced their trash to landfill levels by 49% from 2012, and they're currently pursuing an additional 5% goal through an ongoing waste reduction project. They've also saved over 1.8 million kilowatts per hour and 3,300 MMBTUs. Okay, we have a new member in the steward category, which is the Eaton Corporation in Jackson. Eaton designs, manufactures, and tests hydraulic aerospace components found on 95% of aircraft today. Their facility in Jackson employs almost 500 people. They undertook a LED lighting conversion project that saved over 100,000 kilowatts per hour per year. They also implemented a rooftop HVAC condensation drains routing project that saved over 165,000 gallons of water. Okay, the Naval Construction Battalion Center in Gulfport is also a renewing member. MCBC in Gulfport operates the facilities to support the Naval Construction Force Unit. They partnered with Mississippi Power to implement a solar photovoltaic system saving 4.2 megawatts of energy. They also have diverted over 7,700 tons of sediment from the landfills through a pilot program. Okay, we have another new member, Omega Motion. Omega Motion in Saltillo, they manufacture metal furniture components, have about 350 employees. They're reducing the amount of the wood pallets and cardboard ending up in landfills by creating a returnable tote system for products shipped in the United States. They also reduce the amount of paint waste the process generates by 1 ton per year through an improved paint recovery system. They're also active in its community, and they've adopted Thompson Avenue for a monthly cleanup project. Okay, our next renewing member is the City of Ridgeland. The city is in the process of converting trucks to natural gas fuels, resulting in fewer emissions, fuel consumption, and lower vehicle maintenance. Ridgeland has also expanded their recycling program with solar panel recycling compactors. In addition to being an enhanced member, Ridgeland is a recognized Tree City USA, a bicycle-friendly community, and a top 100 place to live as ranked by Money Magazine. I don't think Northrop Grumman is here, is that correct? But we'll just recognize them anyway. Northrop Grumman is also renewing, and Ocean Springs is renewing as a steward. And on to the associate category, Choctaw Generation Limited Partnership in Ackerman. They lease and operate the Red Hills Power Plant. Choctaw Generation reduced its lighting wattage by 80% through an LED lighting project. Okay, Crest Foam is a new member in the associate category. Crest Foam is located in Houston, Mississippi. They manufacture rebonded carpet padding from scrap urethane foam. They were able to reduce the horsepower of their equipment and conveyor belts by 5%. They've also adopted the streets around their facility, and they host a monthly cleanup. And our remaining new member is Georgia Pacific Wood Products in Taylorsville. They manufacture softwood, veneer plywood, and other lumber products. For their project, they began a wastewater and stormwater analysis project aimed at reducing discharge to the state waters. That resulted in a major beneficial reuse project that diverted nearly 12 tons of waste from landfills and resulted in water savings of nearly 320,000 gallons per year. That's the end of our award members. I think we want to take a photo with all of the award designees together, but just after I said just a couple closing remarks, if you're not a member of enHance and you'd like to apply, the application period begins July 1st until September 30th. I hope you'll join. If there's somebody around here that's a member and you want to ask them about the benefits of the program, please do. Also, please fill out your evaluation form that's in your packet. And again, thank you for coming today. Thank you for making this program a success.
For a minute. Right there at the edge. So you're about So what are you going to do?